Chapter 1952. As the dust dispersed, everyone stared at that maidservant. Wasn't she the maidservant named Hei Ji who had always been by Yi Qing Qian's side? Eldest young miss? Wasn't that Yi Qing Qian? Wasn't it Yi Qing Qian who threw Madame Mu into the ground with a whip? Why was it Yi Qing Qian who fell into the deep pit? This turn of events left the commoners dumbfounded. Could it be that Shui Fei Shui had suddenly recovered her profound energy? Just as everyone was dumbstruck, a figure flew out from that huge deep pit. Carrying a terrifying profound energy, it broke through the clouds. A long blue dress drew a blue arc in mid-air. Like flowing water, it reflected the sunlight and emitted a clear and crystalline light. That person, other than Yi Qing Qian, who else could it be? The person who fell into the deep pit and smashed into the deep pit was really Yi Qing Qian. Everyone stared at Yi Qing Qian, who was standing steadily on the altar. Only to see Yi Qing Qian in a sorry state. Her meticulously made-up hair had long been disheveled under that heavy impact, like weeds, messy beyond compare. That beautiful face was ashen. Vaguely, it could be seen that her ice-like skin had a few scratches. It was obvious that Yi Qing Qian's injury was not light. What was going on? Mu Lai, who was at a close distance, couldn't help but widen his eyes as he stared at Yi Qing Qian in shock. After some time, he regained his senses and immediately climbed to the side of the deep pit which was smashed out. Sticking his head out to take a look, there was a huge deep pit, deep into the ground. It was pitch black and he couldn't see the shadow of the underground. But Mu Lai could feel that there was no one there. Shui Fei Shui was not in the deep pit. Yi Qing Luo, you finally appeared. Yi Qing Qian's angry voice suddenly rang. Everyone looked towards the direction of the voice. They saw Yi Qing Qian, with a twisted face, staring at a certain place behind the altar. Looking closely, it could be seen that Yi Qing Qian's petite body was trembling constantly. Her slender fingers clenched into fists. Yi Qing Luo? Was Yi Qing Luo here? Everyone's heart trembled as they opened their eyes wide to look for traces of Yi Qing Luo. He, big sister is quite sharp. You actually know that I'm here. A clear laughter rang out, like pearls and jade falling from a plate. His laughter drifted with the wind. A slim figure appeared out of thin air. The young girl's flaming dress made her crystal-clear skin look even whiter and more tender, like an exquisite porcelain doll. Her eyebrows were like a painting, and her eyebrows were thin and dark. Her beauty could topple cities. That otherworldly temperament, even though he was just silently hovering in the air. Everyone had the urge to kneel down and worship the goddess. What shocked everyone even more was, in the young girl's arms was a woman in disheveled clothes who was in an extremely sorry state. Wasn't that Shui Fei Shui? As it turned out, just as Yi Qing Qian was about to throw Shui Fei Shui into the ground and forcefully smash Shui Fei Shui to death. Was it Yi Qing Luo who took action? Not only did she save Shui Fei Shui, and even blasted Yi Qing Qian into the ground? Looking across the entire Xilan Square. Thousands of people, thousands of pairs of eyes, not a single one of them noticed Yi Qing Luo's appearance. Yi Qing Luo, how powerful was she exactly? That was Yi Qing Luo? The young lady who shocked the 4 continents and was hailed as a legend by everyone. She actually really appeared. It was as if there was a huge drum beating in the hearts of the commoners. Yi Qing Luo slowly stood on the altar as she placed Shui Fei Shui down. Her hand was still supporting Shui Fei Shui as her lips curled slightly as she smiled sweetly. Madame Mu, are you feeling better? Chapter 1953. This matter started because of me. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have suffered such humiliation. Yi Qing Luo supported Shui Fei Shui and sent her to Mu Lai's side. Leave the rest to me. Mu Lai's hands trembled as he hugged Shui Fei Shui. Both husband and wife's gazes fell onto Yi Qing Luo without blinking. The young lady's smile was bright and beautiful, with a devilish charm and wanton. But, when she said this sentence, the Mu couple obviously saw the chilling murderous intent in the young lady's pupils. No matter who it was, they would be stunned by that beautiful face. This was the lady who made their two sons infatuated. Their two sons' eyesight was indeed not bad. Miss Yi. Shui Fei Shui opened her mouth, her gaze was filled with worry. Before she finished her sentence, Yi Qing Luo had already looked at her. Her shimmering eyes flickered with a hint of gloomy luster. Yi Qing Luo smiled slightly. At an angle that Yi Qing Qian couldn't see, she winked at Shui Fei Shui slyly. Immediately, she said, Zifan and Zifei are fine, you don't have to worry. Now, you should worry about yourselves. Yi Qing Qian's sharp hateful voice was heard from behind. A burst of cold profound yin qi pressed towards them. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as her fingers flicked. The feather fan opened up on her fingertips and rolled up a hurricane. The two forces collided and the profound qi particles exploded in mid-air. Yi Qing Luo leisurely turned around, her expression was calm as she looked at Yi Qing Qian teasingly, tisk tisk, eldest sister is still as impatient as usual. No wonder, you will always be my defeated opponent. You. Yi Qing Qian was so angry that she gritted her teeth. The moment she saw Yi Qing Luo, the anger in her heart surged uncontrollably. She couldn't wait to peel off Yi Qing Luo's tendons and skin her. To destroy everything Yi Qing Luo had. Let's see what Yi Qing Luo had to be arrogant in front of her, flaunting her prowess. The more she thought, the more the resentment in Yi Qing Qian's heart grew. Her sharp eyes turned cold as she attacked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Then let everyone take a good look and see who is the loser. The long whip in Yi Qing Qian's hand cracked loudly in the air. There was no hesitation in her attacks at all. As though he wanted to kill Yi Qing Luo in one strike. Yi Qing Luo sneered as she leapt forward. The glowing flame fan unfurled and launched an attack. As she intertwined with Yi Qing Jian, she lured Yi Qing Jian to the other side of the altar. Yi Qing Qian was most familiar with her whip skills. Plus the power of the cursed magic tool. Yi Qing Qian's attack was totally unstoppable. He could easily injure the others on the altar. When she saw the cursed magic tool, Old Song had given her some information about it in his mind. Cursed magic tools were extremely evil among darkness magic tools. His strength surpassed that of a divine artifact. He also has the evil power of darkness. Usually, people who used cursed magic tools were either demons or on the verge of becoming demons. They were all bloodthirsty, murderous demons. Cursed magic tools were the most frightening. Even wounds inflicted by demonic artifacts would be corroded by demonic qi. It would be fine if he dealt with it in time. If it wasn't handled properly, the demonic artifact would corrode everything in the human body and eventually turn into white bones. Earlier, the dark illusion whip had whipped Mu Lai. From the wound on Mu Lai's face, Yi Qing Luo had almost determined the degree of demonic qi brought by the dark illusion whip. She narrowed her eyes as the glowing flame fan in her hand waved continuously. Star. Chapter 1954. The raging flame fan was like a flame, jumping around Yi Qing Luo's fingertips. Vaguely, as Yi Qing Luo's movements became bigger, the sparks turned into a huge fire dragon in a split second. Following that, the raging flame fan shot out numerous slender silver threads, entangling towards Yi Qing Qian's direction. Yi Qing Luo, do you think you can still trap me now? Yi Qing Qian snorted coldly, the resentment in her eyes was extremely cold. The dark magic whip in her hand swam strangely, piercing through the air, looking sharper than a sharp blade. That whip lashed fiercely on the altar. It could pull out numerous long whip marks that were deeply embedded in the ground. Had to admit. Yi Qing Qian's whip skills, coupled with the power of the cursed magic weapon. One after another, the long whip struck towards Yiqing Luo's face fiercely. The angle of the long whip was very tricky. Yiqing Qian obviously wanted to ruin Yiqing Luo's looks. And Yiqing Luo's figure was agile, her footwork almost made her come and go without a trace. Yiqing Qian could not even touch the corner of Yiqing Luo's clothes. On the contrary, Yiqing Qian herself. Under Yiqing Luo's teasing time and time again, the hurricane and profound energy which Yiqing Luo unleashed broke that exquisite and gorgeous long dress which was like water ripples. Bright red blood oozed out from the wound. Yiqing Qian bared her teeth in anger, her expression was sinister, staring fiercely at Yiqing Luo's direction. The long whip was going to take Yiqing Luo's life. However, the long whip's lightning-fast attack had yet to come close. Yiqing Luo disappeared again. Yiqing Luo. If you have the ability, don't try to escape like a turtle. Yiqing Qian gritted her teeth in anger, she felt like a pet being teased. Yiqing Luo snorted lightly, standing 3 steps away from Yiqing Qian, squinting at her. In that case, eldest sister wants to fight with me openly? Staring at Yiqing Luo's clear eyes. Yiqing Qian's heart was overwhelmed with a feeling of horror. Fight her fair and square. Yiqing Qian's sinister eyes turned cold as her murderous aura appeared. That's right. He. Then I shall fulfill sister's wish. Yiqing Luo chuckled lightly, like a warm breeze, blowing against everyone's eardrums. The beautiful girl was as enchanting as a painting. In the next instant, he disappeared into thin air. Yiqing Luo had unknowingly stood in front of Yiqing Qian. They were face to face, extremely close to one another. Yiqing Qian was so shocked that she took a step back and let out an "ah" scream. Before he could react, Yiqing Luo's lips were already curling into a smile, her bottomless enchanting eyes seemed to be swirling with a whirlpool. Yiqing Qian was so shocked that her heart almost jumped out of her throat. Her face was pale, and she kept retreating. However, Yiqing Luo had already waved her fist and directly punched Yiqing Qian's face. Pang! A punch landed. It did not carry the slightest bit of profound energy. It was a solid punch. Yiqing Qian's nose spurted out a stream of blood. In an instant, it dyed Yiqing Qian's exquisite face. Boom! There was another loud noise. Yiqing Qian fell straight onto the altar. Her nose was bleeding, her robe was full of scratches and blood splattered everywhere. She was thrown onto the ground in a sorry state. The current Yiqing Qian was in a sorry state no matter how one looked at it. Where was the slightest bit of his previous elegance, arrogance and despotic demeanor from before? The surrounding commoners couldn't help but burst out laughing. They expressed that although they didn't have any good impression of Yiqing Luo, but seeing them torturing Yiqing Qian, they felt great. Someone should take care of that vicious woman. Star. Chapter 1955. Yiqing Luo walked slowly to the front of Yiqing Qian. She looked down at Yiqing Qian from above. Just like before, Yiqing Qian looked down at Mu Lai. That high and mighty, insufferably arrogant. As if she was looking at an ant. Yiqing Qian only felt a surge of blood in her chest, a mouthful of blood gushed out from her throat. She stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo, her eyes filled with hatred. Yiqing Luo's eyes curved into crescents as her lips curled into a faint cold arc of ridicule, as though she was ridiculing her for overestimating herself. What a pity, elder sister, even if it's just an aboveboard, I can still face you. Her light voice was mixed with endless mockery. Yiqing Qian's whole body tensed up, trembling violently. It was angry. Yiqing Qian was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She couldn't believe that Yiqing Luo was so powerful. She thought that with the wolf saint technique threatening the pharaoh, using the dark arts to give her a steady stream of profound yin qi, so that she could continue to upgrade her profound grade. The current her her strength could totally reach the level of a Sky Mystic Supreme. Coupled with the dark magic whip that the Wolf Saint technique gave her. No matter what, to defeat Yiqing Luo, it was totally effortless. But in fact, the one who fell to the ground was her, Sky Mystic Supreme. Looking at the entire Nirvana realm, the number of people who could reach the Sky Mystic Supreme could be counted with 2 hands. Of course, there were many experts who liked to live incognito. But no matter how many people there were who hid their identities, there was only one problem. Sky Mystic Supreme was rare in the world. Yiqing Jian would never believe it. Yiqing Luo, a waste for 15 years, could be more powerful than a Sky Mystic Supreme in such a short period of time. There must be someone secretly helping Yiqing Luo. It must be so. Yiqing Jian kept finding excuses to numb herself. Looking at Yiqing Luo's face filled with ridicule. She gritted her teeth and suddenly got up from the ground. The blue water pattern dress was like rolling waves. The ripples of the flowing water were so bright. Yiqing Luo had already guessed what Yiqing Jian wanted to do. At this time, even if she chased up, it would be too late. She simply stood on the spot, looking at Yiqing Jian with a smile. It was as if he was watching a monkey show. After Yiqing Jian left Yiqing Luo's attack range, her figure stretched out as she headed straight towards the direction where the Mu family's old and young were tied up in a row. Her gloomy eyes were burning with rage. She quickly stretched out her hand and grabbed Old Master Mu. The long whip in her hand was placed across Old Master Mu's neck. Yiqing Luo, how dare you? Don't forget, the Mu family is in my hands. Father. Old man. Mu family's old and young cried out in shock as they looked at Yiqing Jian anxiously. These cries of surprise pleased Yiqing Jian. She hooked her arms around Old Master Mu's neck and unlocked the iron chain, then step by step, she walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo, drink the supreme profound medicine soup. Yiqing Jian glanced sideways. He Ji understood and immediately took out a medicine bottle from her waist. That medicine bottle was thrown towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she quietly watched the medicine bottle drop beside her feet. The smile on her lips was tainted with a trace of cold ridicule. Yiqing Jian raged as she pressed the long whip against Old Master Mu's neck even tighter. Slut! If you don't drink the supreme profound medicine soup, I will kill Old Master Mu right in front of you. Star. Chapter 1956. Despicable. Shameless. When the commoners heard that, they clenched their fists in anger as they stared fiercely at Yiqing Jian's direction. This woman was truly a first-class poisonous woman. The commoners had witnessed Yiqing Luo's ability earlier. Thinking of those rumors about Yiqing Luo. These commoners who were blaming Yiqing Luo had no choice but to place their hopes on her. Only Yiqing Luo could kill Yiqing Jian. Only Yiqing Luo could save the West Continent. If Yiqing Luo drank the profound medicine soup, wouldn't she be at Yiqing Jian's mercy? Moreover, based on Yiqing Jian's vicious temperament, even if Yiqing Luo really listened to her and drank the profound medicine soup, Yiqing Jian would never let the Mu family off. But if Yiqing Luo didn't drink the profound medicine soup, the Mu family would still have to die. How should Yiqing Luo choose? The commoners placed their hopeful gazes on Yiqing Luo. The atmosphere, at this moment, became extremely oppressive. Yiqing Jian obviously knew what everyone was thinking. She raised her lips, that face which was covered by messy long hair, still couldn't hide the murderous intent she was giving off. What she wanted, was exactly like this. No matter what Yiqing Luo chose, Yiqing Luo would eventually become the sinner of the West Continent. She wanted to destroy the West Continent. Destroy the continent which used to laugh at her. Moreover, she wanted to push the destruction of the West Continent to Yiqing Luo alone. She wanted Yiqing Luo to be condemned by thousands of people. In the historical records, it was a calamity which brought calamity to the country and people. Yiqing Luo, I don't have that much patience to wait for your decision. Old Master Mu's life is in your hands. Yiqing Qian screamed sharply, her eyes filled with complacency. Lass! Don't listen to her, I'm already so old, I've lived enough. Don't worry about me, just do it and kill this little slut. Mu Xiao spat. He wasn't afraid of the dark illusory whip on his neck at all. Shut up. Yiqing Qian increased the strength of the magic whip. The magic whip, which was surrounded by black qi, drew a line of blood on old Master Mu's neck. Immediately, her eyes flashed with madness. Yiqing Luo. Immediately pick up the profound medicine soup and drink it. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes and stared at the medicine bottle by her feet as she pushed it with her toes. The medicine bottle rolled on the altar, emitting a clear gurgling sound. The breeze swirled her loose black hair around her shoulders. Her red dress was burning like a raging flame. The peerlessly beautiful and enchanting young lady slowly raised her head. Her charming eyes were flowing with light, as she looked at Yiqing Qian with a smile that didn't look like a smile. She curled her lips and chuckled. The laughter was mixed with extreme mockery and disdain. You, what are you laughing at? Yiqing Qian's heart trembled, an inexplicable fear towards Yiqing Luo welled up in her heart again. Yiqing Luo stared fixedly at Yiqing Qian as she crossed her arms over her chest and gave an incomparably calm smile. Why don't you give it a try? Smart eldest sister, you should be very clear that once you hurt anyone from the Mu family, the consequences. What? Would be. Right? She deliberately raised her eyebrows and dragged out the last word. The threat was obvious. Yiqing Qian was so infuriated that her body tensed up, but the magic whip which was stuck on Mu Xiao's neck was unable to move. She understood. Of course she understood. Once she killed Mu Xiao, what would be the consequences? Now, she had the entire Mu family in her hands, so Yiqing Luo didn't dare to act rashly. But if she killed one of them, Yiqing Luo would absolutely strike her without any qualms. Yiqing Luo, that slut, actually thought of such a despicable idea. Chapter 1957. When the commoners heard Yiqing Luo's words, initially they didn't react to what she meant. Later on, looking at Yiqing Qian's expression, they were suddenly enlightened. Momentarily, the commoners were filled with emotions. This 15-year-old young lady who was hailed as a legend indeed lived up to her reputation. Under such circumstances, her brain could still move so quickly. Not only did she ensure the safety of the Mu family, she even threatened Yiqing Qian instead. Even though Yiqing Qian held the lives of the Mu family in her hands. But, Yiqing Luo could still be on the same status as her. What kind of boldness did she have to be able to do this to such an extent? If it was them, they would absolutely not have this boldness and the guts to use the lives of the Mu family as a threat instead. If Yiqing Luo knew what the commoners were thinking about, she would definitely touch her chin as she gave an evil smile. Foolish humans, you're still too inexperienced. How could she, Yiqing Luo, possibly just simply threaten someone who dared to threaten her? Yiqing Qian was extremely infuriated, but she indeed didn't dare to act rashly. Her expression was gloomy as she looked at Mu Xiao, who had a fearless expression and was still looking at her with ridicule. Forcefully suppressing the surging anger in her heart, a glint flashed past her eyes. Yiqing Luo, did you really think that I only have the Mu family as a bargaining chip? She clasped Mu Xiao's neck tightly as her long whip danced, pointing towards the surroundings of West Lawn Square, towards those thousands of commoners. These are all my bargaining chips. Yiqing Qian's words had just landed. Not knowing when, waves after waves of profound yin qi had surged over from the vicinity of West Lawn Square. Those profound yin qi brought along a sinister cold storm as it wantonly plundered everything around it. In just a short moment, it had covered the entire West Lawn Square tightly. Following that, the entire crowd of commoners were surrounded by a total of 200 dark forces black robes. You! Yi Qing Qian! You despicable woman! Dark forces! These are all people from the dark forces. What are you trying to do? Yi Qing Qian, do you want all of us to become the dark forces' food? When the commoners saw those 200 black-robed remnants, their expressions had a huge change. These black-robed remnants had obviously been lying in ambush in the surroundings. He had been waiting for this moment. The commoners actually knew clearly in their hearts that they were forced to stand by the side of the public square by Yi Qing Qian was actually for convenience, so that Yi Qing Qian could kill them on the spot. But when he saw so many black-robed survivors, the people's hearts couldn't help but tremble in fear. Yi Qing Qian allowed those people to accuse and abuse her. In her eyes, there was only Yi Qing Luo alone. She stared sinisterly at Yi Qing Luo, hoping to see a sliver of panic and fear on Yi Qing Luo's face. But after staring at Yi Qing Luo for some time, she was disappointed. When Yi Qing Luo saw the surrounding black-robed remnants, the expression on her face didn't change at all. He seemed to have guessed that such a thing would happen. This really made Yi Qing Qian feel as though she had used all her strength to hit a ball of soft cotton. Not only did it not let her vent the anger in her heart. On the contrary, it made her feel even more aggrieved. Yi Qing Qian was annoyed, so annoyed that her entire heart was burning. A pair of fox-like beautiful eyes gradually exuded mysterious yin qi. Wisps of mysterious yin qi swirled in her eyes. A strong murderous intent shot out. It was Mu Xiao who took advantage of the moment when she was in a fit of rage and anxiously attacked her chest with his palm. This caused her, who had almost gone berserk, to shatter the condensation of her profound qi. The backlash from the profound yin aura caused her internal organs to feel an intense pain. Not just Grandpa, but also us. At some point, the 14 people of the Mu family who were tied up in chains stood up. They were supporting each other and their imposing manner was overbearing as they stared coldly at Yi Qing Qian. The profound qi that lingered around each of them was fluctuating. At the very least, they were all profound practitioners who were above the third grade of the Earth Profound Realm. The commoners sighed in their hearts. No wonder they were one of the 4 great profound families, the Mu family. Not only did they have outstanding abilities in terms of alchemy and treatment. Even his own profound strength was maintained at a level that could only be high and not low. Looking at the aggressive people of the Mu family, Mu Qiqi was stunned. Chapter 1959. She had obviously witnessed the Mu family being fed the supreme profound medicine soup with her own eyes. She had also tested it personally. The Mu family's profound energy had indeed been sealed. She was waiting for Yi Qing Luo to come to the West Square. In front of Yi Qing Luo, to cripple the Mu family's meridians, brutally killing them. How could the Mu family's profound energy be restored? This was impossible. Where did the deviation go? Looking at Yi Qing Qian's distorted face, extremely pale and filled with disbelief, Shui Fei Shui gave a light snort. With Mu Lai's support, she slowly walked out. Her slender jade-like fingers pinched a medicine bottle. She shook it and sneered, "This is all thanks to Miss Qing Luo, for giving me the antidote for the supreme profound medicine soup." Shui Fei Shui's heart was filled with admiration towards Yi Qing Luo. This kind of admiration had already surpassed the boundaries of age. No matter if Yi Qing Luo was just a 15-year-old young lady. Shui Fei Shui's respect towards Yi Qing Luo was from the bottom of her heart. The antidote for the supreme profound medicine soup was secretly given to her by Yi Qing Luo when she first appeared and saved her. When Yi Qing Luo saved her, the profound medicine soup on her had already been cured. After that, while Yi Qing Luo attracted Yi Qing Qian's attention, she fed the antidote to the Mu family. While Yiqing Luo was intentionally provoking Yiqing Qian, constantly attracting her attention. They had already taken the opportunity to adjust the profound energy in their bodies. Shui Fei Shui's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was filled with gentleness. If this lass could become the Mu family's daughter-in-law, how good would that be? Her ability was strong and she had extremely high attainments in medicinal pills. Unfortunately, her two brats were not worthy of this lass. Mu Lai saw through his beloved wife's thoughts with one look. He smiled helplessly, holding Shui Fei Shui's hand tightly. Now was not the time to think about these things. After Mu Lai's reminder, Shui Fei Shui finally straightened her expression, raised her brows and looked at Yiqing Qian. Yiqing Qian, as the eldest Missy of Three Springs sect, you borrowed the dark forces to destroy Three Springs sect, and even the entire West continent. This is unforgivable. My Mu family absolutely won't let you off easily. Mu Xiao stood in front of the young and old of the Mu family, full of dignity. I, Mu Xiao, have retired from the martial world for many years, but today, in order to restore peace to the West Wave continent, I, Mu Xiao, will do everything in my power to expel your dark forces from the West Wave continent. Although the Mu family is the most low-key among the four great families, he had always focused on medicine shops and medical centers. However, when they worked together and released their might, it was enough to intimidate everyone present. The hearts of the people also seemed to be ignited by the Mu family. Yiqing Qian turned pale with fright. She looked at everyone in the Mu family. Their faces were filled with anger, as if they wanted to tear her into pieces. Her heart trembled violently. No. Today was her home court. How could she possibly allow Yiqing Luo to retaliate? She, Yiqing Qian, was the real main character. In the West continent, she could summon clouds and rain with a flip of her hand. Everyone had submitted to her power. She would not fail. She still had the dark forces. She didn't believe that the guards of the West continent plus the dark forces couldn't defeat a dozen Mu family members. What's more, she still had millions of people as a bargaining chip. Based on the kind temperament of the Mu family, they absolutely wouldn't dare to make a move easily. She still had a backup plan. As long as she could drag on till the Wolf Saint technique rushed over. Yiqing Luo and this group of people who didn't know what's good for them had to die. All of them had to die. With this thought in mind, Yiqing Qian immediately dashed towards the direction of those people. Star. Chapter 1960. Mu family, as long as one of you makes a move, I will kill a commoner. Yiqing Qian's hoarse voice bellowed hysterically. She rushed to the front of the commoners. The long whip rolled and 10 over commoners were sucked into the whip. The commoners' faces revealed a terrified expression as they screamed. Yiqing Qian whipped the long whip fiercely and pulled those 10 over commoners towards her. She turned her head and a maniacal smile surfaced on her malevolent face. You still want to scheme against me? As long as you still have a conscience, you will never be able to defeat me. Mu family's old and young's faces sunk. They clenched their fists tightly as they suppressed the anger that was about to explode. Yiqing Qian had indeed grabbed hold of their weakness. They were concerned about the commoners and there was no way they could disregard the innocent commoners. Especially when they saw those commoners' terrified expressions. This made them even more worried that they would not be able to do anything to Yiqing Qian. Mu Zhao's face flushed red. He had lived for so long and this was the first time he had met such a shameless and vicious woman. Looking at those commoners' pleading eyes, listening to those commoners' terrified cries. Mu Zhao clenched his fists tightly as his veins popped out and every piece of muscle was tensed up. In the end, he couldn't stand the commoners' cries. He turned his gaze towards Yiqing Luo, Miss Qing Luo. Mu family's old and young sighed slightly. They had not expected that as the older generation of the four great families, they had to seek help from a 15-year-old young lady when they met with trouble. Yiqing Luo's lips hung a faintly discernible smile. Her arms crossed her chest as her sweet voice had no trace of nervousness. "Old master, don't worry." 5 simple words totally didn't explain what she would do. But for no reason, it made Mu family's old and young heaved a sigh of relief as they felt inexplicably at ease. Yiqing Luo's brows rose frivolously as her eyes were filled with smiles as she stared straight at Yiqing Qian. Yiqing Luo hadn't said a word. Yiqing Qian, who met Yiqing Luo's gaze, was the first to fly into a rage. "Yiqing Luo, don't you care about the commoners' lives? Then let's try and see if you kill me first or I kill all these commoners first." Yiqing Luo was still smiling. She didn't move, just using that kind of smiling yet not smiling, examining gaze, quietly and faintly staring at Yiqing Qian. This kind of gaze made Yiqing Qian almost go crazy. But at this moment, among the crowd of commoners, a loud and clear voice suddenly rang. "Yiqing Qian, you destroyed our home and now you want to make use of us to threaten Madame Yiqing Luo. Even if we die, we won't let you do whatever you want. We owe the Mu family a great debt of gratitude. Usually, they spent all their wealth for us. Today, I want the Mu family to sacrifice their lives for us." "I can't do it. Yiqing Qian, even an ant can swallow an elephant. Even if you're cultivators, no matter how powerful you are, so what? We have millions of companions." One after another, the rousing cries stirred up everyone's hearts. Following the impassioned speeches of those people, the people seemed to be reminded of the Mu family, how they usually did good deeds and served the people wholeheartedly. Today, they wanted the Mu family to once again be controlled by that wicked woman Yiqing Qian? No. They could not stand by and watch as the Mu family was once again controlled by others. Moreover, that person was right. Ants could swallow an elephant, although their strength was small. But they had the advantage in numbers. Before Yiqing Qian could react, a group of commoners suddenly went crazy as they charged towards her. Yiqing Qian was forcefully pressed onto the ground by 10 over people. Losing the support of profound energy, the illusion whip loosened its grip on those 10 over commoners. Chapter 1961. "Ah! You bunch of damned lowly commoners! How dare you hit me? Do you believe that I will make you, ah? Yiqing Qian's miserable cries rang. Those frenzied commoners didn't give Yiqing Qian any chance to react. Even if Yiqing Luo wanted to release her profound qi to shake off those commoners. The minute her profound qi was released, before she could shake off the commoners, there were commoners who accurately pressed on her pulse. Following that, the commoners' bodies and those tyrannical fists landed on her. She had no way to raise her concentration and release her profound qi to resist. Yiqing Qian struggled for a few moments, and under the frenzied violence of the commoners, she could only beg bitterly. However, those commoners' eyes were already red from the beating. They couldn't wait to kill Yiqing Qian directly and have a quick death. How could they possibly let Yiqing Qian off just because she begged for mercy? Who asked you to be so arrogant? Who asked you to be so arrogant? Who asked you to use your status as a cultivator to strut around? Who asked you to capture the Mu family's old and young to threaten Yiqing Luo? Who asked you to still want to kill us? If I don't beat you up till you are covered with injuries, if I don't beat you up till you kneel down and call me daddy, I won't have the face to call myself a commoner. The anger and resentment in the hearts of the common people were instantly appeased. There was no mercy in her attacks. Even with the cultivator's qi protecting her. Under the furious beating of hundreds of commoners, Yiqing Qian could only inhale but not exhale. This scene made the Mu family's old and young dumbstruck. They looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. This is also part of your plan? Old Master Mu asked in a daze. Seeing Yiqing Luo nodding, Mu family's old and young expressed that this lady was simply too terrifying. It was as if everything was under her control. Where did she get the confidence from, to think that she could incite those commoners? If the commoners were afraid of death, wouldn't that incite failure? Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as her long and narrow eyes were filled with craftiness, because I believe the Mu family's position in their hearts. As long as they still have a heart, they will remember what you've done for them. She chuckles and looks at Mu Xiao with admiration. It's all thanks to Grandpa Mu for leading the Mu family to be so upright. Mu family's elder Xiao looked at Yiqing Luo's smiling face and remained silent for a long time. This girl was really amazing. Previously he heard the two young lads mentioning about Yiqing Luo non-stop. They became interested in the girl. Now he saw it with his own eyes. Their fondness towards Yiqing Luo increased. His strength was outstanding, he was loyal, and he had a brilliant mind. He was neither servile nor overbearing, neither arrogant nor rash. Such an amazing girl would definitely become a great person in the future. The two brats in their family had never done anything meaningful in their daily lives. Now, he had finally done something right. Making friends with a miraculous lady like Yiqing Luo. For the Mu family, it was a great fortune. If Mu Zifan and Mu Zifei were present at this moment, they would probably have to wipe away their tears. Were they even related by blood? Below the altar, Yiqing Qian's voice became softer and softer. Yiqing Luo then slowly opened her mouth. Stop, if you continue fighting, someone will really die. Her calm and sweet voice was extremely pleasing to the ear. She was obviously using an ordinary tone and saying ordinary words. Reverberating in the commoners' ears, it easily made those commoners to stop. Their irritable and furious hearts seemed to have calmed down in that clear spring-like voice. Chapter 1962. This is the beloved bed-warming maid of the leader of the dark forces. If you kill her, I'm afraid it will incur the hatred of that leader. Yiqing Luo smiled lightly as she slowly leapt down from the altar. She took leisurely steps and stopped beside Yiqing Qian. When the commoners heard that, they instantly regained their senses. A look of fear and horror appeared on his face. The bed-warming maid of the leader of the dark forces? If they really killed Yiqing Qian, would the dark forces let them off? Luckily, they still retained their rationality, and when they were beating Yiqing Qian up, they didn't hit her vital points. As for the female commoners, their gazes towards Yiqing Qian were filled with disdain. On the contrary, they regretted not kicking her a few more times earlier. A vixen who relied on her seductive looks, they thought that Yiqing Qian was some official in the dark forces. They had not expected that she was just a bed-warming maid. Merely a vixen who used her power to bully others. No matter what the commoners were thinking. They had retreated out of Yiqing Qian's boundary, giving up the space to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Qian laid on the ground on her last breath, twitching. Her clothes had long since been pulled, revealing her skin. A head of messy hair, full of dirt. There wasn't a single spot on her body which was unscathed. It could be seen how vicious those commoners were. If it was any other cultivator, they probably wouldn't be able to survive after being beaten up by hundreds or even thousands of people. Not knowing what kind of transformation Yiqing Qian had done to her body in the dark forces through the dark arts. Not only was she still alive. The injuries on her body were only superficial wounds. But it didn't harm her life. Yiqing Luo rubbed her chin as she stared at Yiqing Qian calmly. The current Yiqing Qian shouldn't be considered as a person. This kind of iron body, she probably had long become an immortal monster. You slut, I want to kill. Kill you. Yiqing Qian widened her eyes, which were filled with hatred, as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. She opened her mouth and let out a low, intermittent roar. Yiqing Luo looked down at her. looking at Yi Qingqian's disheveled state but still tenacious life force. She sighed softly, "Yi Qingqian, you're really a monster." Yi Qingqian's face instantly turned pale. Even though he was in a sorry state and had all sorts of scars on his face, Yi Qingluo could still see through her pale face. Ah! Yi Qingluo half squatted down, a pill, from her fingertip, flicked into Yi Qingqian's mouth. It melted in her mouth and Yi Qingqian had no chance to spit it out. Her entire body convulsed in pain as she struggled. A pair of eyes stared venomously at Yi Qingluo, as though she was questioning Yi Qingluo on what medicine she had fed her. Yi Qingluo clapped her hands as she smiled lightly, "It's just a medicinal pill to replenish your energy. Anyway, you're an immortal monster, so just stay alive and let me torture you." "Nonsense. I'm not a monster, you are." Yi Qingqian's eyes were flustered, as though she had not expected that Yi Qingluo had seen through all her secrets. Her breathing was hurried, as she looked in terror at Yi Qingluo who was slowly approaching. Suddenly, strength came from nowhere. Enduring the intense pain from being beaten up, he got up from the ground. But before she could take a step forward and run a step, suddenly a tearing pain came from the sole of her feet. It was as if something was tearing at her feet. Following that was the intense pain of her bones being smashed. Both her feet knelt heavily on the ground. Yi Qingqian raised her head in terror as she stared at Yi Qingluo. "You, what did you do to me?" "My body." Star. Chapter 1963. Yi Qingluo's lips curled upwards as she gave an alluring smile. "Of course it's to stop you from leaving." Yi Qingqian's eyes were overwhelmed with shock as the intense pain made her body, which was sprawled on the ground, started to twist. Her 5 fingers clenched tightly onto the ground as the hard ground was scratched by her fingers, leaving streaks of marks. "Yi Qingqian, do you think that you can still hope for those dark forces' remnants to save you?" Yi Qingluo looked at her, trying her best to stand up as she couldn't help but laughed out softly. Yi Qingluo's slender brows rose as she pointed behind Yi Qingqian. "Why don't you take a look?" Yi Qingqian's beautiful eyes kept expanding as it was filled with malevolence. "I'm not lying to you. That pill which I fed you earlier is to replenish your physical strength. Other than your legs, you still have the strength to turn your head." Yi Qingluo crossed her arms as she looked at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Yi Qingqian's face sunk as she moved her body. Indeed, her body, which was weakened by the commoners, regained its strength. Other than the intense pain from her legs, there wasn't any discomfort in the other parts of her body. Yi Qingqian naturally didn't feel that this was Yi Qingluo's kindness, intentionally sparing her life. This was definitely Yi Qingluo, that slut's new way of torturing people. If Yi Qingluo knew what Yi Qingqian was thinking, she would definitely smile and nod her head as she told her, "Young lady, you've guessed correctly." Yi Qingqian laid on the ground as her bent fingers clenched into a fist. After some time, she turned her head back as she looked at the place where the commoners were standing. She was filled with apprehension and uneasiness. Why, when she was being beaten up by those lowly commoners, the 200 Dark Forces men whom she had specially selected actually didn't save her or stop those commoners' actions? When Yi Qingqian turned her head back, she saw, round after round, guards dressed in royal family's armor surrounded the entire West Square. Those 200 Dark Forces men had long been subdued by the royal family's guards and had no way to resist. The crowd slowly opened up a path. They saw a man dressed in a dragon-embroidered robe walking over with steady footsteps, filled with majesty. Dragon-embroidered robe. That was the dragon robe that only the current monarch could wear. Yi Qingqian's eyes were filled with astonishment. "You, how could you possibly?" "No, Leng Fengying, how could you?" The person in front of her was delicate, handsome, and extremely gentle. He looked like a good young master, a very amiable young master. Wasn't that the current crown prince, Ling Fengying? Hadn't she locked Ling Fengying in the crown prince's chambers? Ling Fengying's tiger talisman as well as the sovereign's jade seal had already fallen into her hands. How was it possible for Ling Fengying to become a monarch? He could even lead troops to counter her. No, impossible. Yi Qingqian staggered as she stood up and pointed at Ling Fengying as she cried out sharply, "Ling Fengying, are you thinking of rebelling? Without an imperial edict, how could you become the monarch of the West Continent?" She pointed at the imposing royal guards. "Do you all want to rebel with that traitor? Do you all want to become traitors?" Yi Qingqian was hysterical. Those royal guards did not seem to have heard what she said at all. He stood there like a towering mountain. Presumptuous. How dare you be disrespectful to the new monarch? The third-generation senior statesman rebuked angrily, "The new monarch is our West Continent's legitimate new monarch. How can we allow a woman like you to be so presumptuous?" Chapter 1964. What do you mean by legitimate? You're talking rubbish. Yi Qingqian gritted her teeth. According to the West Continent's regulations, before the crown prince ascends the throne, he must obtain the army tiger emblem and West Continent jade seal from the late emperor before he can hold the ascension ceremony. After a pause, Yi Qingqian raised her voice. He doesn't have the tiger talisman or the imperial jade seal, nor did he report the enthronement ceremony, so he can't be considered as a civil affairs official. How can you insist that he didn't? Yi Qingluo smiled lightly as she opened her mouth, as she slowly walked towards Ling Fengying. I. Yi Qingqian stuttered. Of course, she couldn't say that the tiger tally was with her, and the jade seal was with her. Otherwise, Yi Qingluo would definitely snatch the tiger talisman and imperial jade seal by force. She absolutely could not hand over the tiger tally and imperial jade seal. Otherwise, if Ling Fengying had a legitimate reason to cooperate with Yi Qingluo. Her plan to convince the Wolf Saint Law to start with the West Continent, to rebuild the Dark Forces, and to unify the Nirvana realm once again, was going to be ruined. She absolutely could not fail. He absolutely could not lose the backing of the Wolf Saint technique. Yi Qingqian clenched her teeth as she glanced at Ling Fengying. If he has it, then take it out and let all the commoners in West Continent have a look. Otherwise, who would be convinced by a new emperor? However, Yi Qingqian's words had just landed. A loud and clear voice suddenly erupted from the surroundings, resounding through the entire West Wave Square. "I'm convinced. I'm convinced. Congratulations on your ascension to the throne. Congratulations on your ascension to the throne." The commoners were indeed experts at face slapping. Within minutes, he had slapped Yi Qingqian's face. Yi Qingqian's face turned steely green as she retreated a few steps. These few steps caused the sharp pain in her legs to attack her again, as if her bones were being torn and crushed. She screamed in pain and fell heavily to the ground. She hugged her legs and screamed in pain. Her screams were instantly drowned out by the enthusiastic shouts of the people. Ling Fengying's popularity in the commoners' hearts had always been extremely high. Even when Ling Fenghua was still around. Ling Fengying was the most beloved prince by the people. After that, Ling Fengying became the crown prince, the future monarch. The commoners all raised their hands in approval. Right now, the Western Continent was under the control of an evil woman, and she was willfully slaughtering the innocent, dyeing the Western Continent with blood. Even if Ling Fengying didn't officially become the new monarch, they would definitely use their mouths, portraying Ling Fengying as the rightful new ruler. Now that Ling Fengying had come out, he was saving the West Continent from the abyss of suffering. The commoners didn't care if he had the tiger seal or the jade seal. Those superficial things were of no use to the common people. They only knew that once Ling Fengying became the new monarch, their country would be prosperous and the people would be at peace. Yi Qingqian was convulsing in pain. He could still hear those commoners' passionate cheers for Ling Fengying. Her heart was bone-chilling. If she had known earlier, she would have killed Ling Fengying. Without the tiger talisman, without the imperial jade seal, Ling Fengying had no real power at all. What right did he have to become the monarch of the Western continent? The third-generation Doyen looked at the woman lying on the ground in agony. He took out something from his bosom and held it up high. The tiger seal is here, royal army, listen up. Those tens of thousands of valiant and high-spirited royal guards exploded into a deep roar in unison. The royal army is here. Today, this general will hand over the royal tiger seal to the new monarch. The new monarch will lead the royal army to kill this evil woman. Protect the Western continent. The tiger seal was respectfully presented to Ling Fengying. Star. Chapter 1965. Kill that wicked woman. Protect the West continent. Kill that wicked woman. Protect the West continent. Kill that wicked woman. Protect the West continent. The army's roars rose and fell, each one more stirring the hearts of the people. So much so that even the commoners' impassioned hearts were ignited. Following that, the royal guards raised their arms and shouted. Yi Qingqian's face turned pale. She looked at that piece of tiger talisman in disbelief, watching Ling Fengying receiving the tiger talisman and raising it up high. Listening to the commoners and the royal guards' cries of wanting to get rid of her. Her heart was trembling fiercely. Uncontrollable terror rose from the bottom of her heart. No. Impossible, that tiger talisman of yours is fake. It must be fake. Yi Qingqian shook her head in panic. Her voice was extremely soft, and under the deep and resounding cries, it was hard to hear what she was saying. But Yi Qingluo heard it very clearly. She smiled till her eyes were curved as her eyes were filled with a faint smile. Yi Qingqian, based on your IQ, you still want to control an entire continent? She paused as she looked at Ling Fengying's direction. My silly elder sister, there are 2 pieces of tiger talisman. WH. What? Yi Qingqian stared at Ling Fengying in shock. No, you're lying to me. He can't become the new monarch, he doesn't have the qualifications to become the new monarch. Yi Qingluo laughed. Why doesn't he have the qualifications? Could it be that you think you have the qualifications? Yi Qingqian, although you've already been chased out of Three Springs sect, but you're after all still a citizen of the West continent. You're using the dark forces to attempt to control the West continent, seeking benefits for the dark forces. Isn't this considered as treason? Saying that, she lifted a lock of hair and twined it around her fingertips as she laughed softly. TSK, Yi Qingqian, you're the real traitor. When the commoners heard that, their arrogance rose even higher. They clamored that they wanted to kill Yi Qingqian. Yi Qingluo raised her eyes as she smiled at Ling Fengying. New monarch, this is after all my elder sister, and as a younger sister, I can't bear to see her die so miserably, so I'll plead on her behalf, hoping that the new monarch will hand this elder sister of mine over to me to deal with and spare her life. How about that? Ling Fengying naturally had no objections as he nodded in agreement. Yi Qingqian retreated backwards in fear. She didn't believe that Yi Qingluo would be so kind to plead for her. If it fell into Yi Qingluo's hands, she would rather die than live. You. What do you want to do? Yi Qingluo. Even if I die, I will never. Pa. A loud sound pierced through the air and a long whip fell heavily onto Yi Qingqian's body. Yi Qingqian let out a blood-curdling scream as she was whipped and rolled on the ground several times. Yi Qingqian's body was also left with a deep whip mark. Yi Qingluo. That's mine. Yi Qingqian saw the long whip in Yi Qingluo's hand and was so infuriated that a mouthful of blood spurted out. Yi Qingluo was holding the dark illusion whip in her hand. Yi Qingqian and the dark illusory whip had long signed the contract. Yi Qing Luo held the dark illusory whip and actually didn't encounter any resistance from the dark illusory whip? This was impossible. Yi Qing Qian tried hard to adjust the profound qi in her body, trying to summon the dark illusion whip. But no matter how she tried to summon it, the dark illusion whip just hung limply in Yi Qing Luo's hand, without any reaction at all. More accurately speaking, she didn't detect any presence from the dark illusion whip at all. Could it be? Could it be that Yi Qing Luo had destroyed her dark illusion whip? And completely corroded the dark illusion whip's demonic qi? No. How could Yi Qing Luo possibly have such an ability? Star. Chapter 1966. Yi Qing Luo seemed to have noticed Yi Qing Qian's surprise. She shook the dark magic whip in her hand. Like a poisonous snake, twisting and circling. She giggled, "Don't be surprised, it's not the first time I destroyed your long whip." You. Yi Qing Qian's face suddenly turned gloomy. Of course she would not forget how Yi Qing Luo humiliated her in the past. Yi Tianquang racked his brains, spent money and resources to find a supreme-grade whip for her. In the end, Yi Qing Luo handed it over to Ling Fenghua's hands, allowing Ling Fenghua to destroy her soft whip in front of her. At that time, she truly loved Ling Fenghua. The whip was destroyed. She was heartbroken. Now, Yi Qing Luo had once again destroyed her second long whip. Demonic weapons should not appear in Nirvana realm. Yi Qing Luo suddenly moved her wrist. The long whip in her hand turned into a poisonous snake, scuttling in the direction of Yi Qing Qian. The poisonous snake was like an afterimage, winding and circling in the air. As if it had a life of its own, it heavily whipped Yi Qing Qian's body. Yi Qing Qian screamed miserably. There was another bloody whip mark on her body. The whip mark was scarlet, oozing blood. It was a ghastly sight. Yi Qing Qian knelt on the ground from the whip. She looked at Yi Qing Luo with eyes full of disbelief. Yi Qing Luo's whip skills were too strange. When Yi Qing Luo lashed out, she didn't even have time to see the trajectory of the long whip. One must know that this dark magic whip was already a dead object. Even she would not be able to execute such a smooth whip technique. How was this possible? Since when did Yi Qing Luo have such attainments in whip skills? Yi Qing Qian, don't you like to play with the whip? Now, I will accompany you to play. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up slightly, her sweet smile seemed to carry the brilliance of the world. But when he met her charming eyes, he could clearly see the murderous intent in Yi Qing Luo's eyes. Yi Qing Qian obviously saw that murderous intent. Yi Qing Qian was terrified. He had clearly thought of thousands of possibilities. However, he had never thought that things would take such a turn. Ling Fengming became the new monarch and led the royal army to subdue the people from the dark forces whom she had been relying on. He had lost the help of the dark forces. In front of Yi Qing Luo, she was just a dreg. Could it be, was he really going to die in Yi Qing Luo's hands today? No, she didn't want to die. Before Yi Qing Luo died, how could she be willing to die? Yi Qing Qian's malevolent face was howling as she suddenly pounced towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Her pounce was too sudden. Among the crowd, a few panicky and anxious cries were heard, "Qing Luo." A few figures walked out from the crowd. Just as Yi Qing Qian was about to pounce onto Yi Qing Luo, suddenly, a long edge transformed into countless black whip shadows in midair. Immediately following that, it covered the sky and covered the earth, as it tightly bound Yi Qing Qian into the long whip. "Don't worry, how could I let you die?" Yi Qing Luo sneered as her arms suddenly exerted strength and threw the bound Yi Qing Qian heavily onto the ground. Ah! Yi Qing Qian let out a blood-curdling scream. Pa pa pa. Pa pa pa. Pa pa. A series of long whip lashing sounds were heard, one after another. The long whip didn't contain any profound chi. It was just that brute force lashing, on the contrary, made one's skin split open, causing unbearable pain. One whip after another, the entire sky above the public square was filled with pa-pa sounds. Star. Chapter 1967. Yi Qingqian screamed miserably. Her body was whipped as she rolled on the ground. Her skin and flesh, which had just been healed by Yi Qingluo's pill, was whipped once again, and it was a horrible sight to behold. Yi Qingqian's miserable cries continued. The surroundings were in silence. No one dared to open their mouths to break the atmosphere. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock and admiration as they looked at the young lady who had whipped Yi Qingqian till she rolled on the ground. Could it be that she had fed Yi Qingqian the pill earlier so that she could whip to her heart's content now? Looking at Yi Qingluo whipping one after another ruthlessly. But the expression on her face had not changed at all. A faint smile hung on her lips as her eyes squinted, looking extremely languid. This young lady was really terrifying. Yi Qingluo whipped Yi Qingqian, and every whip was full of strength. Even though she didn't release her profound energy. These whips were enough to destroy Yi Qingqian's internal organs and every single one of her tendons. That's right, tendons. Every whip from Yi Qingluo was on Yi Qingqian's tendons and bones. She wanted to shatter Yi Qingqian's bones and break her tendons. No matter how Yi Qingqian's body was transformed into an undying monster. Under this kind of shattering whips, there was no way to reverse the situation. Yi Qingqian had been jumping around for too long. Every time she jumped around, it would hurt her brothers. Her reverse scale was her brothers. Yi Qingqian had challenged her bottom line time and time again. Yi Fengyu was almost killed by her. Devil Class's brothers almost died because of her. The brothers in the world group suffered serious injuries time and time again because of her. All of these, if it wasn't to make Yi Qingqian unable to live or die, how would she be able to vent the anger in her heart? Letting Yi Qingqian die was letting her off too easily. Yi Qingqian's life wasn't as valuable as a strand of her brother's hair. She would not let Yi Qingqian die. She would let Yi Qingqian live in despair, living her days in despair. Pa! A sharp glint flashed past Yi Qingluo's eyes. The long whip in her hand had ruthlessly smashed Yi Qingqian onto the side of the altar. Following that, another round of whip shadows fell from the sky. Time passed, second by second. After an unknown period of time. The commoners only felt their legs go numb, and their bodies almost stiffened from maintaining a posture. Yi Qingluo then slowly retracted her long whip. When Yi Qingluo stopped her whipping, the commoners were shocked as they looked at the place where the abuse was taking place. Blood and minced meat were splattered all over the altar. Yi Qingqian laid on the ground. How would she have the strength to stand up? Apart from her face, there was not a single part of her body that was unscathed. His skin was lacerated and his flesh was badly mangled. Blood stained the place where she was lying. The entire scene was as terrifying as it could be. They were as shocked as they could be. It was as disgusting as it could get. Some of the more timid ones directly bent over and began to vomit. This scene was truly too shocking. He had seen beheadings and torture. He would say that he had never seen such a bloody whipping. What was even more terrifying was, under this kind of whipping situation, Yi Qingqian remained conscious from the start till the end. Even though his body was a bloody mess, his bones were broken, and his tendons were severed. However, she still had one breath left. Furthermore, her consciousness was extremely clear. Moreover, she had sufficient energy. She could scream miserably, she could curse, she could roar, her voice was sharp and shrill. But she just didn't have the energy to avoid Yi Qingluo's long whip. She remained conscious, suffering the whipping to such an extent. Chapter 1968. Yi Qing Luo. Kill me if you have the ability. Just kill me. Yi Qing Qian was in so much pain that she wished she was dead as she cried out in pain. She simply couldn't stand such cruel treatment. She could clearly feel the pain of her body being whipped, the feeling of her bones being smashed, the feeling of her meridians being ripped. The pain of being whipped one after another on her body. She could also clearly feel the heart-wrenching, lung-splitting, and tearing pain of her flesh being torn apart. She wanted to die. Rather die. She didn't want to suffer such torture. Qing Luo, enough. Behind her, those few people who had just walked out from the crowd rushed up to the altar. They stood behind Yi Qing Luo, their eyes filled with worry. Earlier Yi Qing Luo was totally not like her usual self. That kind of imposing manner. That kind of ruthlessness. Even if it was them, they were slightly flustered. Most of them were worried about Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Qian, who was lying on the ground, conscious, her gaze swept past those few ordinary-looking people dressed in coarse linen clothes, as her eyes suddenly widened viciously. It's you guys. It's you guys. Earlier it was you guys who incited those commoners to make a move against me. If they were ordinary commoners, how would they dare to lead the way? This was Yi Qing Luo's scheme. It was Yi Qing Luo who had arranged people first, preparing to kill with a borrowed knife at the right time. Seeing that they were exposed, Long Yunzhan and the others slowly tore off the human skin mask on their faces, revealing their original looks. These few people were indeed arranged by Yi Qing Luo, to mix in among the commoners. Long Yunzhan, Mo Yuing, Tong Zi Qing trio. But they weren't specially arranged to incite the commoners, to intentionally lead the way. She only wanted them to investigate what kind of trap Yi Qing Qian had set, waiting for her to fall into it. But she had not expected Yi Qing Qian to be so confident in herself. She thought that with the 200 Dark Forces remnants, and using the Mu family and the commoners as a bargaining chip, she would be able to force Yi Qing Luo to give in. Hence, it gave Yi Qing Luo a chance to retaliate. In the end, it turned out to be like this. To put it bluntly, it was caused by Yi Qing Qian's overconfidence. Long Yunzhan took a look at Yi Qing Qian, who had almost turned into a pile of rotten flesh, as his brows creased as he asked calmly, "Qing Luo, what do you intend to do with her next?" If Yi Qing Luo still wanted to torture Yi Qing Qian, then he would be the one to do it. He simply couldn't bear to see that cold and ruthless Qing Luo again. Of course. Yi Qing Luo smiled sweetly as she looked down at Yi Qing Qian, sent her back to Wolf Saint technique. Yi Qing Qian's eyes suddenly lit up as she stared at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment and suspicion. "You? What tricks are you trying to play again?" How could Yi Qing Luo possibly send her back to Wolf Saint technique's side? If she returned to Wolf Saint Law's side, how could he let the Wolf Saint technique let Yi Qing Luo off? This was definitely one of Yi Qing Luo's tricks. Yi Qing Luo wanted to see her despairing expression and intentionally deceived her. Send them back? Tong Zi Qing was also stunned. Wouldn't that be releasing a tiger back to the mountain? Yi Qing Luo chuckled, her eyes filled with ridicule. Tiger? Her? He had already turned into a pile of rotten meat, yet he still wanted to turn things around? Of course, nothing was absolute. But would she give Yi Qing Qian a chance to turn things around? No. She would only give Yi Qing Qian endless despair. Suddenly, just at this moment, the sound of horse hooves was heard from the commoner's direction. A royal guard flipped down and speedily rushed towards Leng Fongying as he knelt down. Immediately following that, Leng Fongying's steady voice rang, "Miss Yi, it's bad. The Dark Forces have brought along a few other forces and are rushing towards West Lawn Public Square." Star. Chapter 1969. Dark Forces? When the commoners heard the new emperor's words, their expressions changed drastically. They had witnessed the power of the Dark Coalition. Over the past few days, the Dark Forces had shrouded the entire Western continent at an extremely fast speed and had taken control of every major force and family. He heard that the Dark Organization had also brought a few other organizations here. The commoners were all panicking. The courage he had to beat up Yiqing Qian earlier had now vanished into thin air. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as she raised her eyes towards Leng Fengying. Then, the corners of her mouth curled up. So what? Since he's here, then he's here. The matter of the West Continent can also be settled once and for all. Leng Fengying's tightly creased brows slowly relaxed. His eyes were resolute as he solemnly gazed at Yiqing Luo. Since Yiqing Luo said so. Which meant that Yiqing Luo already had a foolproof plan. As long as Yiqing Luo hadn't collapsed, the Western continent could still be saved. What he needed to do was to fully believe in Yiqing Luo, to fully assist her. By now, Leng Fengying had already bet the latter half of his life, as well as everything in the West continent, on Yiqing Luo. He firmly believed that his foresight had never been wrong. Ha ha ha. Wolf Saint technique is here to save me. Yiqing Luo, you're dead meat. You will definitely die. When Yiqing Qian, who was lying on the ground, heard this news, her face immediately revealed an ecstatic expression. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly, as she looked at the lady by her feet with a smile which didn't look like a smile, and scoffed lightly, really? It seems that the Dark Forces really have a way to rebuild another body for you. She had already turned into a pile of rotten flesh, and Yiqing Qian still wanted to use the Wolf Saint art to save her. It could be seen that the Wolf Saint technique definitely had a way to solve the problem of her rotten flesh. The dark secret art was already this heaven-defying. Yiqing Qian stared at Yiqing Luo fiercely. Wolf Saint Law dotes on me so much, he will definitely cure me. As for you, you will die in the hands of the Holy Wolf technique. Moreover, the Wolf Saint Law will definitely let you die in extreme agony for me. Yiqing Qian's malevolent face radiated an intense murderous intent. Just thinking about the Wolf Saint technique made him rush over. She could almost see the state of Yiqing Luo's death. The blood in his heart began to boil. Really? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she gave an extremely elegant smile. Just nice. I also want to see with my own eyes how much the Wolf Saint technique pampers you. As she spoke, she smiled and narrowed her eyes. She then continued in a seemingly unintentional manner, so, I'm here to test the Wolf Saint's love for you. Yiqing Luo's words made Yiqing Qian's face turn pale. The expression on his face also froze. Recalling the miserable state of being whipped, Yiqing Qian was overwhelmed with shock. What else do you want to do? Pa! A whip flew out horizontally. That long whip landed heavily on Yiqing Qian's face. A scarlet line of blood appeared on that sinister and twisted but still extremely bewitching face. Yiqing Qian let out a blood-curdling scream as she didn't even have the strength to cover her face. My face! My face! Pa! Another whip landed on Yiqing Qian's face. Yiqing Qian screamed miserably, don't hit my face. Don't ruin my face. Yiqing Luo, I'm apologizing to you, it's all my fault, don't touch my face. She wanted to struggle and avoid Yiqing Luo's whip. But she couldn't muster up any strength at all. She could only cry and beg Yiqing Luo not to touch this face which she depended on for survival. Even if it was to lower her head to the Yiqing Luo whom she had always hated, she was willing. Chapter 1970. Yiqing Luo stopped. She bent down slightly and glanced at Yiqing Qian, who was begging for mercy. She smiled. Her long and narrow eyes outlined an incomparably beautiful arc. It seems like you are quite self-aware. She whispered, and her laughter was soothing. Yiqing Qian shook her head with all her might as the wounds on her face started to drip with blood. Her eyes were filled with shock as she cried out, I beg you Yi Qing Luo, I beg you. Don't touch my face, even if you kill me. Don't touch my face. The commoners were all dumbstruck. Even when she was whipped into a pile of minced meat, Yi Qing Qian had never given in. But now because of her looks, she lowered her voice and begged bitterly. This was the so-called, to a lady, her face was more important than her life? For her own face. Even if she had to die. But if she lost her life, what was the use of her face? Yi Qing Qian begged over and over again, but it didn't move Yi Qing Luo at all. Yi Qing Luo swung her long whip, which was like a poisonous snake's whip shadow as it swayed gently. Her long and narrow eyes squinted slightly as a glint flashed past. But Yi Qing Qian, have you ever thought of letting my brothers off when you dealt with them? Yi Qing Qian's begging stopped abruptly. Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly, you won't. Yes, Yi Qing Qian would not let Yi Qing Luo's brothers off. To Yi Qing Qian, killing Yi Qing Luo's brothers was equivalent to cutting off Yi Qing Luo's left and right arms. Yi Qing Qian couldn't wait to kill everyone who was related to Yi Qing Luo. How could she possibly let Yi Qing Luo's brothers off? Similarly, Yi Qing Luo would not let her off. Yi Qing Qian's face was filled with dead despair. Rumble. Da-da-da. A deafening sound was heard from afar. The dark forces and those who had already collaborated with the dark forces rushed over with the main force. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and looked towards the direction of that black mass, attacking from. Suddenly, her lips curled into an indistinct cold smile. Yi Qing Qian, I really can't wait to know if you two are true love. Following Yi Qing Luo's sweet laughter. The long whip in her hand covered the sky and covered the earth as it struck towards Yi Qing Qian's face, as it struck downwards. Ah! Yi Qing Luo! You bitch! I'll kill you, I'll kill you! Yi Qing Qian's miserable cries resounded throughout the entire West continent. Wolf Saint Technique, who had rushed over, also heard Yi Qing Qian's voice. Wolf Saint Dharma leapt up and quickly walked past the commoners, landing on the altar as he frantically searched for traces of Yi Qing Qian. On the altar, sand and dust billowed. He had not yet steadied himself. Suddenly, something was thrown towards him. Wolf Shengfa's eyes turned cold, and he lifted his leg to kick at the incoming object. With a muffled groan, that thing was kicked to the ground. Wolf Shengfa's face turned green as he focused his gaze. The one he had kicked off the altar just now, it was Yi Qing Jian, who had been whipped till her entire body was in a terrible state. Wolf Saint Dharma's heart tightened as he stared at Yi Qing Qian's broken body, as his body trembled slightly. He speedily rushed down the altar and knelt beside Yi Qing Qian. Did you hear what I said? Respond to me, respond to me. Wolf Saint Dharma's voice was trembling, as though it was filled with boundless affection. Yi Qing Qian, who was lying in a pile of minced meat on the ground, trembled slightly. Chapter 1971. Wolf Saint Magic saw Yi Qing Qian's body trembling slightly, a trace of ecstasy flashed past his eyes. Alive, still alive, that's good, as long as she was still alive. Even if this body was crippled, it didn't matter. Just nice, he could also use the dark arts, to fulfill his long-cherished wish. The corners of Wolf Saint Magic's mouth couldn't help but rise. Both hands covered Yi Qing Qian's head. That was the only place Yi Qing Qian could touch. Wolf Saint Magic, save me, save me, Yi Qing Qian tried hard to make her voice sound aggrieved and pitiful. Her head was gently turned towards his direction by the Holy Wolf Technique. Yi Qing Qian adjusted the expression on her face, a pair of beautiful eyes, sparkling with tears of grievance. Blinking his eyes, he poured out his endless suffering. But, Yi Qing Qian thought that her pitiful trick would succeed. But, when Wolf Saint Magic's vision touched Yi Qing Qian's face, the gentle expression on his face stiffened, his eyes suddenly filled with a violent storm. His 5 fingers suddenly tightened, grabbing Yi Qingqian's long hair. Yi Qingqian felt the pain, drew a cold breath, and suddenly tears overflowed. "Wolf Saint Magic, you're hurting me," she said it coquettishly, pitiful. Usually, Wolf Saint Magic loved this tone of voice of hers. But, this time, it made Wolf Saint Magic increase the strength in his hands. He pulled her hair, lifting her up. Yi Qingqian only felt a tingling pain on her scalp, so painful that she almost fainted. In her ears, Wolf Saint Magic's vicious and furious growl rang. "How dare you hurt your own face? How dare you ruin your own face? Wolf! Wolf Saint Magic!" Yi Qingqian's eardrum seemed to be ruptured, her face twisted in pain. This distortion caused her face, which was covered in bloody scars from being whipped by the long whip and could almost be described as a bloody mess, to appear even more terrifying. It also stimulated Wolf Saint Magic's vision. His sinister eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qingqian's face. 5 fingers suddenly clasped her lower jaw. "Yi Qingqian. You obviously know. This Saint Magic most values your face. How dare you hurt this face, to this extent?" Yi Qingqian's body stiffened. Her fine black hair that was being hung up and the sharp pain of her scalp being pulled could not compare to the piercing pain of the Wolf Saint technique's words. The name that the Wolf Saint art called her was no longer but Yi Qingqian. He wanted to take back her identity as protector who. Did he want to abandon her? Yes, she had always known. The holy wolf Dharma doted on her in every possible way because of her face. Her face was exactly the same as the face of the woman he loved deeply. The woman that Lang Shengfa deeply loved had always been a taboo in the dark forces. Yi Qingqian did not know much. He only knew that the woman used to be one of the holy techniques of the dark forces, called the Fox Holy Technique. As for her, it was because her appearance was exactly the same as the Fox Saint Technique. He caught the attention of the Wolf Saint Technique. He enjoyed the boundless love of the Wolf Saint Technique. Yi Qingqian wasn't worried about becoming a substitute. She knew that the so-called Fox Saint Technique had followed the King of Darkness to death after the King of Darkness had been sealed 10,000 years ago. How could a dead person compete with her? Yi Qingqian had always thought that with her means. It was just a matter of time for the Wolf Saint Technique to fall in love with her. But now, Yi Qingqian knew that her cognition was wrong. She didn't have this face, so she didn't have the bargaining chip to attract the Wolf Saint Technique. Without the Wolf Saint Technique, she was only had consciousness, but her body was completely destroyed. How could she survive? Star. Chapter 1972. Wolf Saint Technique, you can heal my face can definitely be healed. Yi Qingqian opened her mouth in trepidation as she stuttered, "I'm wrong, it's my fault. I shouldn't have relied on your adoration and acted recklessly. I shouldn't have discussed with you and found trouble with Yi Qing Luo. Wolf Saint Technique, save me, I will definitely serve you well, whatever you want." Yi Qingqian knew. As long as Wolf Saint Technique was willing. Wolf Saint Technique definitely had a way to save her. Her face, her crippled body, could all receive a brand new transformation. Yi Qing Luo. Wolf Saint Technique gritted his teeth as he spat out these 3 words. Suddenly, he raised his head abruptly. His scarlet-red eyes were like a sharp blade, piercing fiercely towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Yi Qing Luo stood leisurely on the altar, her long and narrow eyes squinted as her slender brows rose, apparently in a good mood. More accurately speaking, she was the one who was enjoying the show. She guessed correctly. What Wolf Saint Technique cared about was indeed Yi Qingqian's face. That time at the Dark Forces, when she saw that Wolf Saint Technique knew that Yi Qingqian once had 2 men, he didn't reveal any jealous expression, so she had her suspicions. If he really loved Yiqing, then how was it possible that when he heard about Leng Fenghua or Leng Fengying, he wasn't moved at all? Today's test was indeed as expected, exactly the same. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up in ridicule as she squinted at Wolf Saint Technique and laughed softly, so Wolf Saint Technique's love is so shallow. It's just a face ruined and he abused her in this way. I really feel bitterly disappointed for my poor eldest sister. The commoners. Was this called ruining a face? This was basically ruining Yiqing's entire person. They were very curious, how on earth did Yiqing Luo manage to pull off such nonsense in a serious manner? The veins on Wolf Saint Technique's forehead popped out as the sinister scarlet eyes glinted with an even more intense glint. Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue. My eldest sister's entire life had already been extremely miserable. In order to climb up the throne, she finally managed to sleep with the previous crown prince and worked hard to climb up to the current monarch. Luckily our new monarch is an upright gentleman and was not moved. This big sister of mine can only linger around, and finally met such a good man like Wolf Saint Fa, but unfortunately, he's such a shallow person. She shook her head and said regretfully, I really feel sad for my poor sister. Pucci, the commoners couldn't help but laugh out loud. This Miss Ye's mouth was indeed a little too poisonous. Although she was speaking up for her elder sister, she still felt that it was unfair. But apparently, it was to tell everyone about Yiqing's glorious achievements. This Yiqing was once the #1 beauty in Three Springs City. As it turned out, she was just a high-class lady with the title of a daughter of a rich family. No, that's not right. Three Springs sect had long severed all relations with Yiqing. Yiqing couldn't even be considered as a high-ranking lady. Wolf Saint Technique's eyes were filled with anger as he clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth as he stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo and shouted sternly, Yiqing Luo. If you dare to hurt her face, I want your life. Wolf Saint Technique only cared about Yiqing's face. As for that body, how many men had been there before, he didn't care. What he wanted was that face. But, Yiqing Luo actually destroyed that face. He had completely destroyed the only obsession he had for thousands of years. He must make Yiqing Luo pay a painful price. Bam! He flipped his palm and slapped Yiqing's body towards Heiji, who was curled up in the corner of the altar. Heiji hurriedly caught Yiqing, who was like mud. Stay here for this Saint Technique. If you let this face get hurt to such a state, this Saint Technique will settle the score with you later. Wolf Saint Technique threw out a sentence. His figure suddenly flashed as he flew towards the altar. Star. Chapter 1973. Wolf Saint Technique landed on the altar. Standing face to face with Yiqing Luo. His sinister eyes shot out an intense ruthless light. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles were protruding. Yiqing Luo gave a light smile. Oh. Is Wolf Saint Technique fighting with me for the dark forces or, for Yiqing's face? Wolf Saint Technique sneered, I'm not going to argue with you. Today, I'm going to avenge the King of Darkness. To avenge the dark forces. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo, the dark forces would have controlled half of Nirvana realm by now. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo, the King of Darkness's plan would have succeeded. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo, they would still be the high and mighty Dark Saint Technique. But now, everything was ruined because of Yiqing Luo. The dark forces were completely exposed in Nirvana realm. Absorbing the young cultivator's soul had also infuriated Nirvana realm. There was no place for them in Nirvana realm. Moreover, Yiqing Luo joined forces with the Imperial Palace to exterminate the dark forces. Almost losing 2/3 of the dark forces. Now, the dark forces who escaped with the few pharaohs and Saint Techniques were not more than 1,000 people. All these were thanks to Yiqing Luo. Now, the dark forces' revival could only depend on the West Continent to make a comeback. They could only succeed and not fail. Yi Qing Luo must die. Wolf Saint Technique's face sunk as he raised his hand high. Everyone, when the dark forces take over the West Continent, the conditions that I promised you will be fulfilled. Behind him, a deafening roar was heard, echoing Wolf Saint Technique's words. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she looked past Wolf Saint Technique towards the crowd. She was very interested in the forces that chose to cooperate with the dark forces at this time. Did those people really believe that the dark forces had the ability to destroy the West Continent, or were they stupid? This look was within Yi Qing Luo's expectations, but at the same time, it was unexpected. Yi Fengru represented Three Springs Sect and brought Three Springs Sect's power to stand with the dark forces, which was expected. After all, when Three Springs Sect restored Yi Qing Qian's identity, it indicated that Three Springs Sect would cooperate with the dark forces. And the reason why Yi Qing Qian was able to control the entire West Continent so quickly, even the four great families were unable to resist. It was because of the Three Springs Sect's help. The Three Springs Sect had to stand on the side of the dark forces no matter what. As for the one standing beside Yi Fengru, it made Yi Qing Luo a little surprised. Because, wasn't that person the patriarch of one of the four great profounder clans, the Shengguan clan? Ever since the Shengguan clan was expelled from the four great profounder clans. Then, he vanished without a trace. He never heard any news about the Shengguan clan again. He never expected to see the Shengguan clan on the side of the dark forces. It could be seen that after the Shengguan clan was removed from the list, they had no choice but to follow the dark forces. What Yi Qing Luo was most concerned about was the person standing behind Yi Fengru and the Shengguan family. Yi Qing Luo's intuition told her that that person was the most dangerous. It was a woman of about 40 years of age. He was dressed in a coarse green robe, and his hair was tied neatly behind his head like a man's. She looked like a Taoist nun. There was a long sword on her back, and the sword hilt was emitting a black aura, which was extremely terrifying. This person looked extremely unfamiliar. In Yi Qing Luo's memory, she had never seen her before. Star. Chapter 1974. 10 Views. Sect Leader of 10 Views? Suddenly, someone in the crowd exclaimed. After the exclamations were heard, the crowd all turned their gazes to the heroic woman who looked like a Taoist nun. 10 Views? That was the biggest sect in Nirvana realm. The sect leader of 10 Views was in cahoots with the dark forces? The people couldn't help but feel a piercing chill in their hearts. If the biggest sect in Nirvana realm intervened in this matter, even Yi Qing Luo might not be able to get away with it. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her brows. When she heard that the person who made her feel a sense of danger was the sect leader of 10 Views, she finally understood where that sense of danger came from. She had heard rumors about the 10 sceneries. About 10 Views, she had some understanding. 10 Views, the biggest sect in Nirvana realm. It was located in the most prosperous area of Jade Dome City in East Continent. It could be said that 10 Views' status in East Continent had surpassed the royal family. It could almost be said that they were on equal footing with one of the four major sects, Jade Dome Sect. One must know that the sect leaders of the other three sects were all extremely bold people, completely different from Yi Tian Kuang, who desperately tried to lower the status of Three Springs Sect to please other forces. In the other three continents, when the royal family saw the sect leader, they had to bow respectfully. In this case, 10 Views could still be on equal footing with Jade Dome Sect. It could be seen the strength of 10 Views. The sect leader of 10 Views, Jing Yanyan, stood under the altar. And Yi Qing Luo stood on the altar. For eyes met, as if Yi Qing Luo was at a high place, overlooking the sect leader of 10 Views. Jing Yanyan's expression sank slightly, suddenly leaped up and flew up from behind Shengguan family patriarch and Yi Fengru, towards the altar. The commoners sucked in a breath of cold air. This sect leader of 10 views was indeed the sect leader of the biggest sect. This boldness, even the dark forces wolf saint technique couldn't be compared. Jing Yanyan held her head high, with the arrogant posture of a sect leader, coldly glanced at Yiqing Luo. Is it you who bullied my disciple and disgraced the reputation of 10 views? The people gasped again. Right. They had forgotten. Yiqing Qian was the only direct disciple that the head of Shijing's sect had personally chosen. Yiqing Qian was once the #1 beauty in Three Springs City. When she was 10 years old, she was brought back to 10 Scenery by Jing Yanyan and cultivated there for 3 years. The only direct disciple. No wonder Jing Yanyan would join the Dark Forces camp for Yiqing Qian. Looking at this stance, Jing Yanyan wanted to take revenge for her direct disciple, right? Pucci, a chuckle interrupted the thoughts of the people. Only to see Yiqing Luo covering her mouth as she laughed incomparably delightfully, he. What sect leader Shijing said is rather laughable. When did I bully your disciple and disgrace your Shijing sect's reputation? Without waiting for Jing Yanyan to speak, Yiqing Luo continued, bully your disciple? If your disciple hadn't tried to kill me time and time again, causing my brothers to almost lose their lives, wouldn't I have been able to retaliate? Or does the sect leader of the 10 Scenery sect think that the 10 Scenery sect is the #1 sect in the Nirvana realm, so you can act as you please outside? Harming other people's lives? Pausing for a moment, she continued, and when others retaliate, is it a humiliation to 10 Scenery? Sect leader Shijing's sect rules have really broadened my horizons. When Jing Yanyan heard that, she sneered and said with a proud look, that's right, my Shijing disciples can be like this. My Shijing disciples can do whatever they want outside. If anything happens, this sect leader will bear the responsibility. But if outsiders hurt my Shijing disciples, this sect leader will absolutely not let them off. Star. Chapter 1975. His words were extremely domineering and overbearing. If the disciples of the 10 sites were present, they would probably be so touched that they would sacrifice their lives for her. However, these words, in the ears of the common people, were a declaration of war. So her disciple was a human. Others were not human? This view was also slightly intoxicated. In that case, sect head Shijing is determined to stand up for Yiqing Qian today? Yiqing Luo's slender brows curved into a smile as she asked with a light smile. Not only for my disciple, but also for the reputation of the 10 sites. Jing Yanyan's eyes were flowing with a sharp light. She finally understood why Yiqing Qian insisted on going against Yiqing Luo. Because, this seemingly sweet and harmless girl. In fact, it was too dangerous. If she couldn't be used for herself, then it must be done quickly. Otherwise, the one who would die in the future would be herself. Pfft, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh out loud. She laughed so hard that her stomach felt pain. She covered her abdomen and giggled non-stop. Jing Yanyan's face was like a dying workshop, green and red. Until Jing Yanyan's eyebrows twitched, obviously unable to hold back and was about to explode. Yiqing Luo stopped laughing, her slender fingers stroked her eyelashes and wiped away the tears of laughter. She giggled and said, the one who tarnished the reputation of the 10 Visions, wasn't it the direct disciple who was personally taught by the 10 Visions sect master, the one whose skills were inferior to others? The expression on Jing Yanyan's face was completely stiff and livid. Not waiting for Jing Yanyan to explode. In front of her, suddenly, an afterimage like a ray of sunlight flashed past. Jing Yanyan hadn't reacted yet, only heard a crisp, "pa" sound of a slap in her ear. At the same time, he felt a burning pain on his cheek. Jing Yanyan's eardrum buzzed sound, the sound made her brain hurt like it was being torn apart. The wind blew and the smoke dispersed. Everyone clearly saw Jing Yanyan on the altar, the obvious red and swollen handprint on her face. The audience was silent. The 10-site sect master was slapped in the face. And the person who slapped her. She stood there leisurely as if nothing had happened, as if everything had nothing to do with her. Jing Yanyan only came back to her senses after a long while. The stinging pain on her cheeks caused her expression to gradually turn ferocious. The arrogance and dignity of the sect leader suddenly collapsed. Her gaze seemed to be burning with raging fury as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. "You, how dare you? Yiqing Luo, this sect master is absolutely irreconcilable with you." Yiqing Luo smilingly pulled out a handkerchief and slowly wiped her hands. "Patriarch Shijing, I'm just using my actions to show that I'm actually quite similar to Shijing sect." Her hand that was wiping her hands suddenly paused. She raised her eyes with a smile and gazed at Jing Yanyan with a light smile. In her charming eyes, a cold light flowed wantonly, like an ice-cold poisonous snake, locking onto Jing Yanyan. Jing Yanyan's heart skipped a beat. She anxiously retreated a few steps and suddenly creased her brows, staring fiercely at Yiqing Luo. But the current Yiqing Luo had already changed her expression. "Speaking of which, I'm also very overbearing. It's always me who bullies others. If others retaliate, I absolutely won't be polite." Yiqing Luo smiled incomparably enchanting, her charming eyes curved, the arc was narrow and charming. Chapter 1976. The crowd stared at the altar with sparkling eyes at the spirited young lady. Oh my! This was too cool, wasn't it? He was so handsome that their hearts couldn't stop thumping violently. Jing Yanyan's eyes were gloomy, the anger in her heart had reached its peak at this moment. She opened her arms wide and the long sword on her back was unsheathed from the sheath. That sword was shrouded in a layer of extremely thick black qi. Obviously, it had been processed by the dark forces. The long sword was extremely long, like thin ice, shining with a biting cold chill. The long sword circled a few rounds in midair. The black qi was like a poisonous snake, chasing after the long sword. That is 10 Scenery Sect's treasure, Scenic Light Sword. Scenic Light Sword. It's actually Scenic Light Sword. Sect head Shi Jing is trying to kill Yiqing Luo, trying to take her life. Too despicable. Yiqing Luo is just a 15-year-old young lady. 10 Scenery Sect's head is stronger than Yiqing Luo, and even took out the sect's treasure. What number 1 sect? Pfft. When the crowd saw that long sword, they started to ridicule. Some of them saw that black qi, and the contempt in their eyes grew even deeper. The most despicable thing is, 10 Scenery Sect's head actually borrowed the power of the profound Yin qi. How unconfident is she in herself, to actually come up with such a despicable idea? The so-called number 1 sect, really makes me laugh my teeth off. Too disgusting. 10 Scenery Sect, get out of the Nirvana realm. 10 Scenery Sect, get out of the Nirvana realm. A slogan was shouted. At that moment, the commoners started to echo his sentiments. One after another, the deafening slogan resounded throughout the West Lawn public square. On the altar, Jing Yanyan pointed at the scenic light sword, her eyes were filled with a sinister chill. She snorted coldly, "Yiqing Luo, today I will do justice on behalf of heaven, and take care of this calamitous demoness." Just as her voice fell, she had already leapt up, the scenic light sword in her hand, released a strong sword ray. Profound qi broke out of her body, and the sky was filled with endless sword rays. The earth shook, and between heaven and earth, thunder roared. When this valiant heaven-shaking power was revealed, the people who were shouting stopped one after another. Their eyes were filled with shock as they came into close contact with this powerful profound energy. They were just a bunch of ordinary people. They couldn't withstand such pressure at all. The commoners clutched their hearts and fell to the ground weakly. As for Jing Yanyan's sword aura, it was still growing. The people in the surroundings were affected more and more. At this moment, suddenly, a thin layer of profound energy enveloped the altar. The celestial qi gradually formed a barrier that enveloped the entire altar. It also forcibly separated the sword qi released by Jing Yanyan from the commoners. Without the erosion of the profound energy, the citizens could finally breathe in fresh air again, and the squeezing of their internal organs also gradually eased up. It's the Mu family. The people's eyes were sharp, and they saw a few people sitting cross-legged at the edge of the altar, maintaining the barrier. It was none other than the Mu family. Those with higher profound ranks were all sitting beside the altar, exhausting their profound energy to fight for the greatest protection for the people. The people didn't even have time to praise the actions of the Mu family. Suddenly, they heard Wolf Saint Technique's icy cold voice rang, "Do it. Annihilate this bunch of traitors in the West Lawn continent. Ruling over the West Lawn continent is our first step." The next moment, the remaining evil people dressed in black robes surged in from all directions. As well as various forces troops, surrounded them. Star. Chapter 1977. Royal Army. We pledge our lives to protect the safety of the citizens, to protect the West Continent. Leng Fenging was unfazed as his extremely authoritative voice reverberated in the air. You are the strongest army in our West Continent, the strongest army stationed in the West Continent. You are the heroes of the West Continent. Today, in order to protect the peace of the West Continent, to protect the safety of the citizens, we shall banish this bunch of rebels and traitors from the West Continent. This batch of royal army was the strongest army trained by the West Continent's royal family. And the tiger tally which mobilized the royal army had always been guarded by the third-generation veteran. For so many years, no matter who it was, no one was able to obtain this tiger tally from the third-generation veteran. Even the late monarch was the same. But now, the third-generation veteran personally handed over the tiger tally to Leng Fenging and supported him to become the new monarch. It was enough to show the position of the new monarch in the hearts of the third-generation veteran. The royal army's eyes were resolute as they gripped the weapons in their hands tightly. Protect the West Continent. Protect the safety of the citizens. Fight. We are the West Continent's royal army. Our mission is to protect the West Continent. Protect the citizens. Fight. 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 The soldiers were filled with boiling hot blood. They faced the dark forces and other forces as they swarmed forward. The soldiers from both sides quickly tangled together. A huge battle was about to break out. This was a war to protect the peace, to protect their homeland. Even the commoners had their blood ignited by the soldiers' passion. Countless people volunteered to join the battle with their own hands. Even if their strength was insignificant. Even though the dark forces they were facing could easily take their lives, they did not give up. But they were still fearless. Thousands of citizens joined the battle. This made the morale of the royal army greatly boosted. As a soldier, the most touching thing was that the people whom they were protecting could respect and understand them. The citizens risked their lives to protect them. How would the royal army bear to let the citizens get hurt? Hence, the citizens who risked their lives to protect their own abilities had a huge increase. One soldier and one citizen, such a combination, after a long time, the royal army obviously gained the upper hand. Wolf Xiaofan squinted his sinister eyes as he looked coldly at the two armies who were locked in battle. A hint of mockery flashed across his eyes. Then, he raised his eyes and looked at the two people fighting on the altar. The 10 Views sect master Jing Yanyan was specially invited to entangle Yi Qing Luo. The Wolf Saint technique had witnessed Yi Qing Luo's prowess. He didn't expect Jing Yanyan to be able to kill Yi Qing Luo. As long as he entangled Yi Qing Luo, he would entangle her till she was unable to make a move and disrupt the battlefield. Then, he would definitely win this battle. The West Continent would belong to the Dark Forces. At that time, he would control the Dark Forces and become the next King of Darkness. Wolf Xiaofan's eyes shone with ambition. His gaze shifted as he looked at the people beside him. The other 3 holy techniques and 4 pharaohs understood and joined the battle. As for Yi Fengru and the Shangguan clan head, they rushed into the battlefield without hesitation and started a brutal massacre. Smoke rose in all directions, and the smell of blood spread across the entire continent. On the altar, Yiqing Luo, who had exchanged over 10 moves with Jing Yanyan, had been paying close attention to the battle outside the enchantment. Chapter 1978. Yiqing Luo's heart was faintly flustered. She frowned slightly as the glower flame fan in her hand swept up a vast profound energy, opening up a path. Following that, she leaped up, attempting to escape Jing Yanyan's attack range, heading towards the battlefield. But before she could move, a surging sword ray blocked Yiqing Luo's path. Jing Yanyan held the scenic light sword tightly as she struck out a swift and fierce sword move. The altar shook, and numerous cracks appeared on it. Trying to leave? Jing Yanyan sneered as she raised another sword wave and changed her sword move. Damn it! Yiqing Luo bit her lower lip as she swiftly retreated backwards, avoiding Jing Yanyan's long sword. The glower flame fan opened up as a red cold ray flickered and the sharp blade collided heavily with the long sword. Clang! The profound ray exploded as both of them retreated at the same time. The 2 of them stood on both sides of the altar as their gazes met, their battle intent rising. After dozens of moves, Jing Yanyan no longer dared to let down her guard against Yiqing Luo. This 15-year-old young lady's ability was actually on par with hers. No wonder her proud disciple would be defeated in Yiqing Luo's hands. No wonder Wolf Saint Technique specially invited her twice, offering such tempting conditions to get her to take action in order to deal with Yiqing Luo. If this young lady wasn't eliminated, she would become a huge trouble. Thinking of this, the ruthlessness in Jing Yanyan's eyes grew more intense. Yiqing Luo clenched the glower flame fan tightly as she pursed her pink lips, her expression congealed. She could tell what Wolf Saint Technique's motive was for finding Sect Master Shijing. Wolf Saint Technique's motive was pretty close to the mark. But in the current situation, she was entangled by Jing Yanyan and had no way to help the royal army. Yiqing Luo, why don't we have a bet? Will you and I be the first to decide the winner, or your royal army die in the battlefield first? Jing Yanyan's eyes were filled with murderous intent as her lips curled into a vicious arc. The sword wave in her hand flew over once again. Yiqing Luo's body floated in midair as the glower flame fan trembled, like a blooming gorgeous flower, shooting out sharp silver threads, entangling in all directions. Sect leader Shijing is really confident. Yiqing Luo's 5 fingers tightened as she tugged on a few strands of silver thread, flicking them on her fingertips, like a sharp blade reaping human lives. Holding the scenic light sword, bullying the weak, if you were to lose to a junior like me, I don't know if 10 scenery can still maintain the reputation of being the #1 sect. Jing Yanyan's pupils shrank. She gritted her teeth and a terrifying aura burst out from her body. The sword moves became even more complicated and difficult to break. Carrying the majestic profound energy, it surged towards Yiqing Luo. The silver thread and the sword ray collided again. Yiqing Luo swiftly retreated a few steps. However, this time, when Yiqing Luo retreated to a safe place, Jing Yanyan's figure suddenly swayed. It was as swift as lightning as it split apart those few sharp silver wires, closing in on Yiqing Luo from the side. The long sword in his hand pointed straight at Yiqing Luo's heart. Jing Yanyan was able to become the sect master of the #1 sect, and her strength was definitely not undeserved. His combat experience wasn't something an ordinary person could compare to. She knew very well that Yiqing Luo's speed was extremely fast. If it was to compete with Yiqing Luo's speed, she probably couldn't even touch the corner of Yiqing Luo's clothes. But as long as she saw Yiqing Luo's habit of dodging At the moment when Yiqing Luo evaded her attack, she attacked the direction where Yiqing Luo evaded. Then she could attack Yiqing Luo at close range. And Yiqing Luo would definitely not be able to react in time. In fact, Yiqing Luo indeed didn't expect that Jing Yanyan would take the risk and use such a method to attack her. She had already retreated extremely quickly. But it was still unavoidable. Jing Yanyan's long sword had scratched her shoulder. Star. Chapter 1979. Yiqing Luo knitted her brows tightly and stabilized her body in pain. She glanced sideways at the injury on her shoulder. A long and thin blood scar was extremely obvious. No wonder it was the sect's treasure. The power of the scenic light sword was too strong. Yiqing Luo's injury made Jing Yanyan's expression reveal an arrogant look. Sure enough, she guessed correctly. Yiqing Luo's speed was fast, but as long as one knew Yiqing Luo's habit of dodging, she could easily subdue Yiqing Luo. Jing Yanyan's self-confident sword. Her 5 fingers gripped the scenic light sword tightly as it slashed towards Yiqing Luo's face once again. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips, the expression in her eyes revealed a trace of interest. Yiqing Luo, go to hell. Jing Yanyan's long sword slashed downwards as she spat out these words fiercely. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly as her body suddenly flipped over. The fiery long dress fluttered. The glower flame fan in her hands burst out with profound energy. The coquettish red glow set off the fiery long dress. It set off Yiqing Luo's gorgeous face, like a blooming rose in the night, exuding an intoxicating charm. Jing Yanyan's cold eyes dimmed. Honey trap is useless against me. She scoffed lightly, disdaining Yiqing Luo for trying to use a honey trap at this juncture. She was a woman, not a man. Towards Yiqing Luo's face which exuded a fatal temptation, she would not have any tender feelings for the fairer sex. Honey trap? Don't disgust me, facing your face, I can't use a honey trap. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly as her pink lips curled into a strange arc. The next moment, Yiqing Luo's feather fan flipped. A red ribbon shot out from her sleeves. That red ribbon was like a burning fire dragon. Yiqing Luo opened her glower flame fan at the same time as her profound chi burst out. The hurricane was released from the glower flame fan and instantly split Jing Yanyan's sword attack, wrapping Jing Yanyan within it. Insignificant skill. Jing Yanyan reprimanded as her cold eyes swept across the incoming hurricane and red ribbon. Her long sword moved, and her sword moves were swift and fierce, unstoppable. In just a moment, the layer of red silk covering his body was split into pieces. The red silk cloth was scattered on the horizon. Jing Yanyan puffed out her chest arrogantly, her expression was complacent. Yiqing Luo, just based on you and you want to compete with this sect master? You overestimate yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, Jing Yanyan felt a chill down her spine. A sweet voice drifted into his ears, is that so? Sect leader Shijing, what a pity. I've learned that diversion tactic of yours. Jing Yanyan's expression turned cold as she used her fastest speed to avoid Yiqing Luo's attack range. She was shocked by Yiqing Luo's reaction and her astonishing speed. He had to admit it. This Yiqing Luo's innate talent was much stronger than the genius Yiqing Jian. Back then, why did she fall for that trash Yiqing Qian? Instead, they neglected the true geniuses. However, Jing Yanyan did not have the chance to regret now. No matter what, she was a direct disciple of the 10 Scenery sect, so she absolutely could not allow outsiders to bully her. Hiss, the sound of clothes tearing was heard. Jing Yanyan's clothes on her shoulder was torn apart. She was shocked and quickly lifted the brilliant light sword to counterattack her shoulder. Clang clang, the brilliant light sword slashed across the air, bursting out a strong ray of light. Jing Yanyan then discovered that it was the silver thread in Yiqing Luo's glower flame fan that tore her clothes. Chapter 1980. A strand of silver thread, when Jing Yanyan's long sword was being restrained. Suddenly, a streak of blood was drawn on her shoulder. Fresh blood gushed out and instantly dyed her plain robe red. Jing Yanyan felt the pain and her sword moves became increasingly fierce. Under the rage, her profound energy surged and surged in this instant. Under the surge, it shook off the restraining silver thread. The next moment, Jing Yanyan charged towards Yiqing Luo's direction. However, Jing Yanyan's long sword was just about to approach. Yiqing Luo's figure suddenly disappeared into the air. Jing Yanyan's long sword paused and released her perception as she scanned the surroundings vigilantly. Giggle giggle, a burst of sweet and clear laughter was heard leisurely. Jing Yanyan immediately turned around and looked towards the direction of the sound. She saw Yiqing Luo standing at a place at least 20 steps away from her, smiling charmingly. I have always been a vengeful person, even if you hurt me, I have to pay it back. She took out a handkerchief with her slender fingers and gently wiped away the blood that had seeped out from her shoulder. The expression on her face was calm and enchanting. Jing Yanyan tightened her grip on the brilliant light sword. This woman was really amazing. Just like what she said, she was a vengeful person. If she couldn't kill her today, then she would definitely take revenge for today's hatred. Jing Yanyan's eyes were piercingly cold, bursting out a strong murderous intent. What a vengeful person, I want to see what kind of life you still have, vengeful person. Jing Yanyan was already full of energy, her own profound energy, also erupted to the extreme. The brilliant light sword in her hand, the sword moves, became more and more aggressive. Every move and every style, like a surging wave. The surrounding air seemed to be affected by the profound energy as it formed a distorted vortex of nothingness. This time, Yiqing Luo didn't dare to be too unrestrained. Jing Yanyan's profound grade was originally above her. Moreover, the current her, without the tranquil pearl, had no way to forcibly raise her profound grade, to compete with her. After a few more moves, Yiqing Luo could only rely on her own footwork to avoid Jing Yanyan's attack. Moreover, every time she dodged, she had to change the angle. After a long time, Yiqing Luo also felt that it was rather strenuous. Jing Yanyan's eyes lit up, and the attacks in her hands increased explosively in an instant. Seeing Jing Yanyan's sword aura slashing towards him again, Yiqing Luo had no way to resist against such a powerful force. He could only use his footwork to quickly move away. She gathered her spirit and sensed the changes in the air around her vigilantly. Then, he moved and stood behind Jing Yanyan in an instant. She gripped the glowing flame fan tightly and decisively moved it towards Jing Yanyan's neck. It was also at this moment. The gourd flame fan was only half a palm away from Jing Yanyan. Jing Yanyan suddenly regained her senses as she raised her palm and struck Yiqing Luo's chest. Then, a powerful sword aura came crashing down. Yiqing Luo felt a sharp pain in her chest as her body was forced to fly out. When Xiao Chen managed to stabilize his footing with much difficulty, countless swords followed closely behind. Damn it! This Jing Yanyan actually saw through her footwork once again. Yiqing Luo's expression was grave, her half-squinted eyes reflected a cold glint. At this moment, Yiqing Luo had no time to use her footwork to escape. The speed of the sword shadows was extremely fast, giving her no chance to react. Yiqing Luo, run! Aren't you very good at running? Jing Yanyan sneered and ridiculed. From what she thought, Yiqing Luo was definitely going to die under her sword move. At this moment, Yiqing Luo's mental power was concentrated on the sword shadows, star. Chapter 1981. Since he couldn't hide, he could only face it head-on. Her strength was indeed inferior to Jing Yanyan's. If he were to forcefully resist these sword shadows, even if he did not die, he would be crippled. This was probably what Jing Yanyan was planning. But, what Jing Yanyan did not know, she still had her golden finger. She could even cheat. Yiqing Luo narrowed her long and narrow eyes as her lips curled into a cold arc, which was extremely bewitching and flirtatious. In that instant, Yi Shiwen's expression changed. Her fingers quickly stroked the azure water divine weapon on her fingertips. Her fingertips curled into a thin red line, and she quickly covered her neck with it. When the dark force was injected into the divine weapon, Yiqing Luo only felt her petite body trembling violently. A horrifying power instantly eroded her body and mind. It was as if something was slowly penetrating and spreading through her limbs and bones. Bang! A powerful ray of profound light shot out from her body. It collided heavily with the hard attack that was coming at it head-on. They had just collided. That sword shadow instantly vanished into thin air. Jing Yanyan's proud smile froze on her face. What replaced it was disbelief and shock, as well as panic and shock. Because, after defeating the sword shadow, the profound light shot towards Jing Yanyan like lightning. Whereas at this moment, Yiqing Luo's eyes were still shut, as though she didn't know what was happening in front of her. The azure water ring on his fingertip emitted a scorching heat. The azure aqua silk chain around his neck emitted a scorching heat. The two forces were constantly crossing each other. Yiqing Luo could clearly sense the two forces colliding within her body. The earth quaked and the mountain swayed, and the altar beneath their feet actually shattered. The heaven and earth's spiritual qi seemed to be lingering around Yiqing Luo's body, revolving continuously. That's a divine artifact. It's actually a divine artifact. Among the people fighting below, someone let out a cry of surprise. This voice made Yiqing Luo abruptly open her eyes. A powerful red profound light engulfed her entire body. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared once more. But Yiqing Luo's majestic imposing manner remained on her. She squinted her eyes and looked in the direction of the surprised roar. Unknowingly, the situation of the two armies that were fighting had turned around. It turned out that the various forces in the West Continent which were previously controlled by Yiqing Qian and Yiqing, had all brought their own forces and rushed over, joining in the battle to protect the West Continent. Because of this, those various powerhouses could tell at one glance that the red profound glow emitting from Yiqing Luo's fingertip was the god relic which Yiqing Luo had obtained that day in King Ling's tomb. Divine weapon? When Jing Yanyan heard that, she covered the injury which was struck by that profound ray earlier, as she stared gloomily at Yiqing Luo, despicable. To actually use the power of a divine artifact. No wonder Yiqing Luo was able to defeat her sword moves. No wonder Yiqing Luo's imposing manner had taken a qualitative leap in an instant. That was the power of a divine artifact. Jing Yanyan's eyes revealed greed. This divine artifact should belong to her. Yiqing Luo's gaze had already fallen onto Jing Yanyan and naturally did not miss that smear of greed in her eyes. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched slightly. Did she think that a godly weapon was something that anyone could possess? She wants to get a divine artifact? The arc on Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a sliver of ridicule. She leapt up and floated in mid-air. Her skirt fluttered, as though it was a blazing flame. Her arm lifted up slightly and the glower flame fan opened up on her fingertips. Chapter 1982. That clear voice in Jing Yanyan's ears was like an ice blade, piercing her eardrums. Jing Yanyan staggered back a few steps, her eyes staring at Yiqing Luo without blinking, her heart tightened into a ball. The young lady floated in mid-air, a head of fine hair, scattered on her shoulders, swaying with the wind. She was like a fairy from the ninth heaven, shrouded in dazzling brilliance, looking down on all living beings. Every smile and frown seemed to be brilliant, making one unable to blaspheme. That was the power of a divine relic? Jing Yanyan was filled with shock. Yiqing Luo looked down at Jing Yanyan, seeing the greed and fear in her eyes. Her lips curled into a sweet smile. Those who offend me, I will kill them at the ends of the earth. She threw the glower flame fan into the air. The glower flame fan rotated rapidly in mid-air and suddenly opened up. Like a ball of tiny flame, with a whoosh, it burned into a raging flame. Yiqing Luo's figure swayed, her slender white hand raised up, steadily catching the glower flame fan. Soon after, a wind blade that was like thousands of giant waves was fiercely slashed out. Yiqing Luo's body was also surrounded by a circle of vortex qi. One circle after another, incomparably powerful, and all the other auras in the surroundings were isolated. Jing Yanyan quickly wielded her long sword, stirring up numerous waves. The sword momentum was fierce, not willing to fall behind, facing the wind blade released by Yiqing Luo, slashing down horizontally. Immediately, her sword move changed. She was already close to Yiqing Luo, the long sword pointed straight at Yiqing Luo's eyebrows. Yiqing Luo's lips revealed a smirk of evil cold arc slightly squinted long eyes, flashing with an interesting luster. She didn't dodge, but stared fixedly at the long sword pointing at her eyebrows, without blinking. Yiqing Luo's confidence made Jing Yanyan's heart, unknowingly, rise up a sense of fear. The long sword that was brandished also lost some of its momentum. This couldn't be another new trick of Yiqing Luo's? Jing Yanyan originally had absolute confidence. Her sword momentum, Yiqing Luo absolutely had no way to avoid, and could only choose to forcibly resist. And she was also prepared to make a move on Yiqing Luo while Yiqing Luo was resisting. No matter what, he could not allow Yiqing Luo to use the power of the divine relic. Otherwise, she would definitely be no match for a divine artifact. But Yiqing Luo's complacent look really made Jing Yanyan's heart beat like a drum. Jing Yanyan looked at Yiqing Luo suspiciously, trying to find a clue from her expression. But when Jing Yanyan met with Yiqing Luo's ridiculing gaze, his heart exploded like a volcano erupting. Jing Yanyan's gaze turned cold. Her wrist moved, and she gripped the bright light sword tightly. "You're deliberately mystifying things to scare me?" She scoffed coldly, her gaze sharp as a blade. "I've never been afraid of anything. A little girl like you wants to scare this sect leader?" As she spoke, Jing Yanyan's own profound strength soared extremely violently. It was as if he had gathered all his dark force on the sword. The vast and boundless sword force was like a hot knife cutting through butter, directly charging towards Yiqing Luo's glabella, stabbing towards it forcefully. The surrounding commoners had been paying attention to the battle in the field. When they saw Yiqing Luo about to be stabbed by Jing Yanyan's long sword, they all cried out in shock. There were quite a number of commoners, who were anxious to rush up the stage, to help Yiqing Luo block this sword. However, then, a scene that astonished everyone happened. Just as the bright light sword was about a fist's distance away from Yiqing Luo's glabella, suddenly, bright light sword's strong charge seemed to have met with some obstruction, as it came to a halt. Star. Chapter 1983. Jing Yanyan's expression congealed. She clenched her teeth and used all her strength to stab forward. But there seemed to be a membrane in the air. No matter how hard Jing Yanyan tried, the scenic light sword didn't budge at all. It couldn't get close to Yiqing Luo at all. How was that possible? Yiqing Luo's surroundings didn't have any enchantment, so how could the scenic light sword not hurt her? Jing Yanyan's eyes were filled with astonishment as she couldn't figure it out. Yiqing Luo was all smiles, her eyes curved as she looked at Jing Yanyan who was close at hand. "Sect Master Shijing, it's a good thing not to be afraid, this way. It's interesting when I play with my prey, isn't it?" "No, impossible, what, What sorcery did you use? Jing Yanyan's chest heaved up and down violently. When she met Yiqing Luo's smiling eyes, she instinctively wanted to retreat. But Jing Yanyan's hand, which was holding the long sword, had yet to withdraw. Suddenly, she saw Yiqing Luo's body, shooting out a ray of red light. Like an avalanche, it rushed towards the scenic light sword which was pointed between her eyebrows. Kacha! There was a crisp sound of something breaking. The scenic light sword in Jing Yanyan's hand broke into two. The broken blade fell down, landing on the ruins of the gravel. Jing Yanyan's pupils suddenly constricted, her eyes stared unblinkingly at the sword in her hand, which was left with half a long sword. Her petite body was trembling slightly. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Broken. Her scenic light sword broke. 10 scenery sects sect treasure, broken. This was the inherited sword of every sect master of 10 scenery sect. Today, it was broken in her hands. No. Impossible. How could the sect treasure be broken? This must be Yiqing Luo's sorcery. Jing Yanyan's eyes immediately turned red. She stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo, her murderous intent burst out, "Slut! It's you. It's your sorcery, trying to deceive my eyes. Quickly hand over the scenic light sword. Hand over the scenic light sword." Her hand, which was holding the scenic light sword, kept trembling. Her entire body stiffened, showing a state of madness. How could the sect treasure of 10 scenery sect be broken? Even if it was a divine weapon, it wouldn't be broken. There was no way it would break. Jing Yanyan fiercely pounced towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Her sharp shriek was extremely ear-piercing. "Slut! Hand over the bright light sword. Hand it over." However, before Jing Yanyan could get close, an invisible stream of air bounced her off the ground. Jing Yanyan tumbled down from the air and landed on the ground. That was profound energy. The flow of profound qi encircled Yiqing Luo's body. It formed a protective shield for Yiqing Luo. Earlier, Scenic Light Sword was unable to get close to Yiqing Luo because it was obstructed by this protective shield. She was just a 15-year-old girl. How could she possibly possess such a powerful flow of profound energy? Even if he borrowed the power of a divine artifact. Even so, it was impossible to raise her profound rank. Jing Yanyan's eyes were filled with terror as she stared unblinkingly at Yiqing Luo's smiling face. Wait a minute, Mystic Class. Yes, Mystic Class. From the beginning to the end, she had not been able to see through Yiqing Luo's profound grade. The thoughts he got from Yiqing Qian. Jing Yanyan had always thought that Yiqing Luo was at most Earth Profound 5th grade. And the reason why Yiqing Luo was able to exchange so many blows with her, was because she had many magical weapons. The Overlord gifted her the Glower Flame Fan, and Yiqing Luo herself was an alchemist and so on. But she had never thought deeply about what level Yiqing Luo's profound grade was at. Chapter 1984. As the sect master of 10 views, she had the best resources since childhood. At the age of 60, she had finally stepped into the Sky Mystic realm and became a Sky Mystic Supremacy. Because she was a Sky Mystic Supremacy. For many years, no one dared to find trouble with 10 views. And it had been sitting steadily on the throne of the number 1 sect. But now, she had suffered such a big loss in the hands of a 15-year-old girl. How could this girl be a Earth Mystic 5th grade cultivator? Could it be that Yiqing Luo was also a Sky Mystic Supremacy? No. Absolutely impossible. A 15-year-old Sky Mystic Supremacy? Who would believe it? Even the Overlord couldn't possibly reach the Sky Mystic realm at the age of 15, right? Jing Yanyan couldn't believe it as she propped herself up on the ground and stared at the girl in midair. She would rather believe that the reason why Yi Qing Luo could possess such great power was because of the divine weapon. She absolutely wouldn't believe that Yi Qing Luo was a sky mystic supremacy. Sect Master 10 views, the brilliant light sword has been broken. If you still insist on going about things the wrong way, don't blame me for not knowing how to respect the elderly. Yi Qing Luo raised her pink lips. Under the glow of the glower flame fan, her charming eyes were covered with a layer of fiery red glow, adding some flirtatious and bewitching charm to her stunning looks. Elderly. These 3 words stung Jing Yanyan's ears. Which woman didn't want to be talked about the problem of appearance and age? Even Jing Yanyan, who had always dressed like a Taoist nun, attached great importance to her appearance. Otherwise, she wouldn't have specially used profound energy to maintain her appearance as a 30 or 40-year-old woman. If it wasn't because she was the sect master, she had to be older in order to convince the masses. Otherwise, Jing Yanyan would definitely maintain her appearance as a 17 or 18-year-old. Arrogant silly girl, don't you dare be arrogant. Jing Yanyan clenched her teeth as she gripped the sword hilt in her hand and attacked Yi Qing Luo relentlessly. The broken brilliant light sword was like a dead object. No matter how Jing Yanyan released her profound energy, the brilliant light sword had no reaction at all. Jing Yanyan's fingers clenched tightly as her red eyes stared at the sword hilt in her hand. Even now, she still could not accept it. Her scenic light sword had really been broken by Yi Qing Luo's profound qi airflow. Ah! Ah! Jing Yanyan no longer had any thoughts to attack Yi Qing Luo. Hugging half of the scenic light sword, she half knelt on the ground and let out a heart-wrenching roar. The scenic light sword represented the lifeline of the 10 sceneries. Now that the scenic light sword had been destroyed, she had become the sinner of the 10 sceneries. How could Jing Yanyan's heart calm down? Girl, take advantage of this opportunity to take down the 10 scenery sect master. Old man Tsang transmitted his thoughts in his mind. Yi Qing Luo half squinted her eyes as she gazed at the woman who was howling hoarsely. Her eyes were as calm as still water. As for Jing Yanyan's heart-wrenching, he did not feel anything at all. Hearing old man Tsang's words, her eyelashes fluttered. You still haven't obtained the calming bead. The power of the divine artifact won't be able to last for too long. You have to end this quickly. Old man Tsang saw that Yi Qing Luo still had no reaction as he advised in a deep voice, after dealing with the 10 scenery sect master, you still have to deal with the dark forces, so don't waste your energy in vain. Yi Qing Luo nodded slightly, I know. Yes, she couldn't sustain the power of the divine artifact for too long. Because of this, the profound jade heart would faintly riot. If it wasn't for the jade pendant which Dmo Xian found for her, which suppressed the agitation of the profound jade heart, she would probably have been devoured by the profound jade heart by now. Star. Chapter 1985. The only way to deal with Jing Yanyan was to start with the scenic light sword. Because of this, Yi Qing Luo exhausted the power of the divine relic and broke the scenic light sword. Exhausting the power of the divine relic was equivalent to exhausting Yi Qing Luo's own profound energy. Breaking the scenic light sword almost exhausted half of Yi Qing Luo's power. The current Yi Qing Luo, with the power of the divine relic, could not hold on for too long. If she did not end the battle quickly, the pendant on her neck would forcibly suppress the power of her profound jade heart. Once the power of the profound jade heart was suppressed, the power of the divine relic would also diminish. Before this, what she needed to do was not only to settle Jing Yanyan, but also the dark forces. She must win this battle. Otherwise, the West Continent would be destroyed. Three Springs Sect would also completely become a traitor party. Three Springs Sect was Yi Fengyu's. She had promised Yi Fengyu that she would hand the Three Springs Sect over to him. She must not destroy Three Springs Sect. Yi Qing Luo's eyes turned cold, powerful profound energy lingered around her body. Streams of air, turned into a huge whirlpool. As if it could swallow everything in the world. Sect Master Shijing, take your laughable scenic light sword and scram back to Shijing sect. Yiqing Luo reprimanded, and immediately opened the glower flame fan, spewing out a thick and majestic profound qi. The profound qi in mid-air, turned into a light arc. In a split second, the surrounding air seemed to distort. A wave overshadowed the sound, shaking the heavens and earth. The entire West Billow Square was plunged into the quaking of the earth and mountains. This was the power of the divine relic? This kind of terrifying and majestic profound qi. This kind of profound qi was enough to shock people. This was the power of the divine relic? Too terrifying, even if it was separated by the barrier of the Mu family. All of them could clearly feel the surging waves of air that came one after another. The entire square, both armies, were shocked by the profound qi that Yiqing Luo released at this moment. Jing Yanyan was still half kneeling on the ground, hearing Yiqing Luo's insolent rebuke. Her brows suddenly turned fierce, clenching her fists tightly, her heart was filled with hatred towards Yiqing Luo. However, the hatred in her eyes had just covered her eyes. A powerful profound qi whizzed over. Jing Yanyan's pupils constricted, and she wanted to retreat. But her reaction was already too late. Bang! Majestic profound qi fell. The entire ground cracked into rubble and flew in all directions. Dust billowed, and everything was filled with a bloodthirsty and cold aura. Dead, dead? Miss Yi, sect leader Shijing, she's dead, right? I knew Miss Yi was the best. Long live Miss Yi. Long live Miss Yi. When the onlookers saw this, a look of joy appeared on their faces. As long as Yiqing Luo settled the 10 scenic sect master, the underground forces would lose a capable assistant. Yiqing Luo then joined the royal army. The dark forces would not be able to fight back. Just as everyone seemed to have seen a ray of hope, Yiqing Luo squinted her charming eyes, as she fixed her gaze on the direction where the smoke and dust were curling upwards. She frowned, her voice cold. Yi Fengru? My good second brother, could it be that because of your love for Zi Qianqian, you have already fallen in love with this old woman? Everyone was taken aback. Following that, their eyes widened, as they looked at that patch of smoke in disbelief. The smoke slowly dispersed, only to see Jing Yanyan lying on the ground, covered in blood. Blood had dyed her plain-colored long robe red, and below her was a river of blood. But Jing Yanyan was not dead yet. Her expression was sinister, as her features were distorted due to the pain. Standing in front of Jing Yanyan, the refined man holding the long sword had one hand behind his back, while the other was pointing towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Star. Chapter 1986. The man's sleeves fluttered, his white long robe was not stained by the blood rain. His expression was calm, as gentle as jade. His elegance was just like his name. There wasn't any sense of incompatibility. His black and white eyes stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. His voice was calm. Seventh sister, as a member of the Three Springs sect, you should advance and retreat together with the Three Springs sect. But today, because of your own ambition, you went against the Three Springs sect. Not only did you become a traitor of the Three Springs sect, you even assisted the rebels to seize the imperial power. You have thrown the Three Springs sect's face. He enunciated each word with great force. His tone was filled with deep regret. Yiqing Luo was about to laugh at his shamelessness. This was the first time she saw Yi Fengru spouting nonsense in a serious manner. It was a novelty. She giggled as her eyes were filled with ridicule. Second brother's ability to lie through your teeth is really strong. The commoners were filled with righteous indignation as they echoed Yiqing Luo's words. Did he need to be so shameless? Didn't he want his face anymore? And the traitor of Three Springs sect? And the traitor? And throwing the Three Springs sect's face? You're obviously the one who threw the Three Springs sect's face, and even tarnished Three Springs sect's reputation as one of the 4 major sects. The real traitor was this so-called second young master of Three Springs sect. The real traitor was this so-called second young master of Three Springs sect. Was he bullying them for not being educated? Even if they hadn't been educated, they still understood the most basic etiquette and shame. Yi Fengru's long sword moved as he stared at Yi Qing Luo and struck directly. Seventh sister, since you're so stubborn, then I can only put justice before family. His sword moves were not like Jing Yinyan's. His sword moves were without any fancy moves, completely aimed at the vital points. This kind of attack was fast and accurate. If it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't have the ability to react at all. But to Yi Qing Luo, these sword moves were nothing. But Yi Qing Luo was still rather surprised. Yi Fengru was not only a grandmaster alchemist, his sword skills were not bad. His Xian grade had also improved since the last time they fought in the Ling King tomb. Very few people could concoct medicine and cultivate at the same time. Suddenly, Yi Qing Luo caught a glimpse of a strange glint flashing past his eyes. Yi Qing Luo's heart shuddered as she immediately withdrew her hand and retracted her profound qi. Her footwork expanded and her figure disappeared in mid-air. Yi Fengru's longsword slashed down. Visible to the naked eye, a mass of white powder drifted in the air. Yi Fengru's expression froze, and his warm expression disappeared. He furrowed his brows and looked around vigilantly. Second brother is still as sinister as ever. You still want to take the opportunity to poison me? Have you forgotten the lesson from last time? Yi Qing Luo's sweet laughter was heard coming from his back. Yi Fengru was startled. He immediately turned his head and retreated. Fixing his eyes on her, he saw Yi Qing Luo standing not too far away from him with a face full of smiles, as her smile was filled with ridicule. Yi Fengru gripped his longsword tightly as he watched the poison powder he had painstakingly refined scatter in the wind. The rage in his eyes started to burn wantonly. Yi Qing Luo's reaction was actually that fast? She actually managed to evade it before he used the poison? How could she have guessed his next move? Recalling the last time, in the Ling King tomb, he had tried to poison Yi Qing Luo repeatedly. But Yi Qing Luo easily evaded it. Whereas he had suffered Yi Qing Luo's poison powder. That heart-wrenching pain. He absolutely wasn't willing to suffer it a second time. Star. Chapter 1987. Yi Qing Luo had a panoramic view of Yi Fengru's expression. Her lips curled upwards and her smile became even more radiant. Second brother, do you know that there's always someone better out there? As a dark alchemist, your skill in alchemy is constantly improving, but even though I'm wholeheartedly cultivating my profound grade, I've never neglected alchemy. Looking at Yi Fengru's pale face as he took a few steps back, Yi Qing Luo's curved brows looked extremely demonic. Yi Fengru relied on his identity as a dark alchemist. He wanted to take back the pain he had suffered the last time in the Ling King's tomb. But he neglected it. He wasn't the only one who had improved. You. Yi Fengru's fingers turned white as he gripped his sword tightly. His gloomy eyes were filled with an eerie chill. Yi Qing Luo, your arrogance will make you die a tragic death sooner or later. He flipped the long sword, his eyes were cold as he waved the long sword again, profound qi burst out. Yi Qing Luo shook her head with a chuckle as she easily raised her glower flame fan to block that sword. Second brother, you're too weak, I really don't want to waste time with you. She clicked her tongue as her vision went past Yi Fengru and landed somewhere. Immediately, the smile on her lips became even more scornful, but second brother, don't worry, you won't be too lonely. Her words had just ended when Yiqing Luo had already flown up and retreated a long distance backwards. Yi Fengru had used all his strength to slash towards Yiqing Luo. While contending against Yiqing Luo's glower flame fan, he had used up all his strength. And Yiqing Luo's sudden retreat. This caused Yi Fengru's body to become unsteady. His entire body staggered forward a few steps, and then heavily fell on his face. Yi Fengru's expression instantly turned gloomy. He climbed up from the ground and wanted to attack Yiqing Luo again. But the moment he turned around, his footsteps stopped. Behind him was a group of about 1,000 people dressed in blue mercenary group uniforms. Their bodies, front and back, were embroidered with an extremely conspicuous kill word with golden thread. Death God Mercenary Group. On the Mercenary Group Honor Roll, ranked third in the Gold Medal Mercenary Group Guild. The leader of the group was delicate and handsome, but he did not lose his dignity. He was the leader of Death God Mercenary Group, Nangong Firen. Firen, Yi Fengru's hand that was holding the longsword paused as he stared at Nangong Firen without blinking. Ru, how could you walk this path? Nangong Firen's face was filled with pain, and his voice was extremely hoarse. A small head popped out from behind him. Nangong Lin looked at Yi Fengru timidly and pursed her red lips. Big brother Ru. Why? Why did you abandon the Killing God mercenary group? Facing the brothers who had fought together with him. Facing the brothers who had gone through thick and thin with him. The expression on Yi Fengru's face gradually loosened. Why? His thin lips trembled as he gently spat out 3 words. Suddenly, he chuckled softly. You asked me why. Nangong Firen frowned and slowly closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she exhaled and said, You did it for Qianqian, didn't you? At the mention of Zi Qianqian's name, Yi Fengru's body trembled slightly. His gloomy eyes flashed with traces of madness and a faint wry smile. It's you who abandoned Qianqian. It's you who abandoned us. Qianqian colluded with the dark forces and attempted to destroy the entire Nirvana realm. She deserved to die. Nangong Firen's voice was cold as he said word by word, as the executive leader of the Death God mercenary group, you colluded with the dark forces and attempted to destroy the West Continent on behalf of the Three Springs sect. Do you really think that you only represent the Three Springs sect? Where do you put the Death God mercenary group and the brothers who have gone through thick and thin with you? Star. Chapter 1988. Yi Fengru was stunned as his eyes were in a trance. His gloomy eyes revealed endless hesitation. Yi Fengru. Don't forget what you've promised me. As long as you succeed, I will try my best to fulfill your conditions. Just at this moment, Wolf Saint Art's voice was heard. Yi Fengru raised his head as his body swayed slightly as he stared at Wolf Saint Art in a daze, looking helpless, as though he had not regained his senses from Nangong Firen's provocation. Ru, Azura is very pained towards Qianqian's death. I know you like Qianqian but she's already dead, what you need to do is to look forward. Nangong Firen saw this and immediately increased his tone as he advised, don't continue to make mistakes. You still have Azura and us brothers. Before Nangong Firen could finish his words, Wolf Saint Art bellowed angrily again, Yi Fengru, think carefully about what you want the most. Want. Yi Fengru suddenly raised his head as a gloomy glint flashed past his eyes. He held the long sword in his hand tightly, I only want Qianqian alone forever. Qianqian died in Yiqing Luo's hands so no matter what, I must kill Yiqing Luo to take revenge for Qianqian. His voice turned cold like ice, Nangong Firen, if you insist on stopping me, then don't blame me for not caring about our brotherhood. Brother. Nangong Lin hugged Nangong Firen's arm. Her eyes were glistening with tears as she stared at Yi Fengru in a daze. Lin, be good and move aside. You can't mess around here. Nangong Firen knew his sister's intention. He forcefully pried Nangong Lin's hand away. I've given him a chance. Since he's willing to abandon his brothers for a woman, I have nothing to say. Lin, there are thousands of men in this world. I will find you a man who is better than him. Nangong Lin pursed her red lips tightly as her eyes filled with tears. She knew that everything her brother did was for the sake of the overall situation and for her. She knew that Yi Fengru had never liked her from the start and only treated her like a sister on account of Nangong Firen. But she liked Yi Fengru. She didn't want to see her brother and brother Ru kill each other. They lie. Nangong Firen shouted. Wei Bailey's expression was unfathomable. When Nangong Firen shouted for the second time, he walked out and grabbed Nangong Lin's wrist. Look after Lin, I'll stop the gnome. The other brothers, protect the West Wave continent. As soon as Nangong Firen gave the order, he flew forward and engaged Yi Fengru. Brother Ru. No matter how unwilling Nangong Lin was, she was still dragged to the back of the crowd by Wei Beilai. The mercenaries of the Death God mercenary troop received the order and immediately charged in the direction of the Dark Coalition. Move aside, Nangong Firen. I don't want to fight you today. Seeing that Yiqing Luo's figure had already dashed towards the battlefield, Yi Fengru gritted his teeth and wanted to chase up to her. However, in the next moment, Nangong Firen had already closed in on him. Nangong Firen's face was calm. He didn't use any weapons. He was barehanded and only wanted to trap Yi Fengru. Yi Fengru's target was to stop Yiqing Luo from joining the battle. In that case, his target was to stop Yi Fengru from making mistakes again and again. Chapter 1989. Stupid. Jing Yanyan, who was lying on the ground, unable to move, sneered at Yiqing Luo's actions. Just like that, they attacked the place where the two armies were fighting without any hesitation. Wasn't she afraid of hurting her own army? Did Yiqing Luo really thought she was heaven-defying? She could control her own profound energy and had her own consciousness, not attacking the royal army. However, at the next moment, Jing Yanyan spat out a mouthful of blood in shock. Only to see the sky full of airflow turning into several sharp wind blades. Wherever the wind blades went, the dark forces and 10 scenery sect's disciples were all slashed into several pieces by the wind blades. Whereas, the direction of the wind blades, coincidentally, it evaded the royal army completely. It didn't hurt the royal army at all. This scene made Wolf Saint Fa's brows creased tightly. Wolf Saint Fa. What should we do, with Yiqing Luo, that little slut, making a move? Together with those two sacred beasts, we won't be able to last more than 1 hour. After Butterfly Saint Fa evaded Yiqing Luo's wind blades, she flew towards Wolf Saint Fa's direction. She seductively wiped off the blood stains on her face filled with displeasure. Their Saint Fa had always been high and mighty, there was no need for them to do anything themselves. Today, everything was listening to Wolf Saint Fa's orders. 3 Saint Fa and 4 pharaohs all joined the battle. But Wolf Saint Fa just stood by the side and watched. If it wasn't for the fact that Wolf Saint Fa had an absolute trump card in his hands, they couldn't be bothered to take this vexation. Wolf Saint Fa glanced at Butterfly Saint Fa sinisterly and sneered, "What's the hurry? Just drag the time. No matter what, we will definitely win this battle." Looking at Wolf Saint Fa's confident look, Butterfly Saint Fa was filled with curiosity. "Wolf Saint Fa, what are you trying to hide? It's already so urgent. Can't you just say it out and boost everyone's morale? You don't believe in this Saint Fa?" Wolf Saint Fa's tone sunk, as though he was impatient. Butterfly Saint Fa pursed her lips as a sliver of unresigned anger flashed past her eyes. But very quickly, she suppressed that anger and revealed a smile. "Why wouldn't I believe you? if I don't believe you, why would we be charging forward here? Then cut the crap. Wolf Saint Law gave a cold snort, without the slightest bit of tenderness towards the fairer sex. Those trash are unable to hold Yi Qing Luo back, the few of you, think of a way to hold her back. Otherwise, everything will be for naught. The butterfly saint technique clenched her fists. Since they had already come this far, they could only cling to the last straw of hope. Otherwise, in today's battle, even if they escaped from the Nirvana realm, they were afraid that even if they hurt Yi Qing Luo, they would not be able to escape the pursuit of the Overlord. Now that things had come to this, he could only believe in the Wolf Saint technique. The Butterfly Saint technique joined the battle once again, as it headed straight towards the target, Yi Qing Luo's direction. Die. Pharaoh Crane had been paying attention to the whereabouts of the Butterfly Sacred technique. When he saw her coming over, he immediately flashed to her side. What did that wolf say to you? Butterfly Saint technique, delay Yi Qing Luo, otherwise all previous efforts will be wasted. Pharaoh Crane, he still hasn't said what his trump card is. Based on the current situation, who can control Yi Qing Luo? They had all crossed hands with Yi Qing Luo. Towards Yi Qing Luo's ability, they were clearer than anyone else. If they fought head-on, they might even lose their lives. Look at Yi Qing Qian. Then look at Sect Master Shijing. Sect Master Shijing and Yi Feng Ru were specially used by the Wolf Saint technique to hold Yi Qing Luo back. But they had all failed. They held Yi Qing Luo back. What were they going to use to hold her back? Especially now, Yi Qing Luo, who was using the power of the God Relic. He was simply unrivaled. Star. Chapter 1990. Butterfly Saint Technique's expression was gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yi Qing Qian, who was in a pool of blood and flesh behind the Wolf Saint Technique. If it wasn't for that woman acting on her own, we wouldn't need to waste so much effort to delay Yi Qing Luo. Originally, Wolf Saint Law had already decided on a plan. But Yi Qing Qian, that woman, thought that she could cover the sky with one hand. Why must he go against Yi Qing Luo? Now, not only did he cause himself to suffer unspeakably, they even had to pay with their lives. If, before they were tortured to death by Yi Qing Luo, Wolf Saint Technique had yet to reveal his trump card. What was the use of stalling for time? Pharaoh he and the Wolf Saint Mage were never on good terms. He especially loathed the useless women that the Wolf Saint Technique had brought back. Although that woman had the exact same appearance as the former Fox Saint Law. However, his temperament and strength were two extremes. Only the Wolf Saint Technique, who was infatuated with the Fox Saint Technique, would treat this similar-looking Yi Qing Qian as a treasure in the palm of his hand. Now, because of Yi Qing Qian, the strength of the dark forces was greatly reduced. What's more, it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to delay the Wolf Saint Law from taking out his trump card. How could they not be resentful? How could they not be angry? If not for the fact that they could only rely on the so-called trump card of the Wolf Saint Technique, they would absolutely disregard the Wolf Saint Technique and strangle Yi Qing Qian to death. After Yi Qing Luo joined the battle, not only did it lessen the pressure on the royal army, it also boosted the morale of the royal army. Each and every one of them had an insane fighting prowess. Especially with the addition of the Death God mercenary group and other forces. The dark forces were gradually losing strength, and their combat power was getting lower and lower. Moreover, towards Yi Qing Luo, the dark forces had already developed an instinctive fear towards her. One had to know that this young lady was the one who had sealed the consciousness of their King of Darkness. Kill these traitors. You are the kings of the Western continent. It contains our dark forces' holy techniques and dark secret arts. What was there to be afraid of? Kill. Kill. The wolf sacred eye roared furiously when it saw that the morale of the dark faction was dropping. You have the noble bloodline of the dark forces. What pressure do you have to deal with these lowly humans from the mortal world? What did a 15-year-old girl have to fear? If one wasn't enough, then two would go. If two didn't work, then three. No matter how powerful she is, she can't fight against four people. And your Three Springs sect. You are one of the four major sections. Could it be that you can't even deal with the traitors of your own sect? What use do the Three Springs sect have for you? Look at your sect master. He's fighting for the Three Springs sect's peace. How long are you going to be afraid? The Wolf Saint technique enunciated each and every word clearly and sonorously. His dignified tone ignited the fighting spirit of the dark forces and other forces that were afraid of him once again. The Wolf Saint Dharma continued, "Don't forget, from the moment you stepped onto this path, you have no way out. You can only fight with your lives on the line. Kill all these traitors and rebels." The dark forces had already joined the dark forces in the Western continent, and at this time, they had no choice but to be on high alert to deal with the attack of the Imperial Army. Indeed, they had no way out. Once they did, they would lose to the Royal Army. In the annals of history, they would be labeled as rebels and traitors instead. They could not afford to lose this battle. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.